it gets really buggy, and sometimes like old replays won't let two people watch at the same time. So I've just kind of skipped past all that. Now I pretty much just run it all through Discord now, which I probably should just pay for Discord Nitro because I'm like limited to 720p and it's like laggy half the time. But if it gets laggy, just let me know. I'll make sure to take a minute, make sure that nothing's going on my internet or anything. Cool. All right. So the first thing, let me pull up another notepad really quick. The first thing that usually happens for these coachings, it also I'm going to mention these generally go a little bit longer than what I said. I think on the website it's like 1 to 2 hours. They sometimes go a little bit longer. Do you have like an extra 30 minutes past that in case it does go long? Cool. Sounds good. Yeah, so it'll sometimes get a little bit longer. So this is usually broken down in about 3 pieces. The first piece is kind of an intro. Who are you? Why are you getting coaching? Have you been on any competitive teams? It just goes from that. We both kind of just talk a little bit. Usually takes about 30 minutes. My goal is to then build something off of your goals. So if your goal is to move up in rank, if your goal is to join a team, if your goal is to just improve, that's kind of the next thing. If it's a little bit of everything, that's fine. Then I kind of build out a different structure for you, and that's where like the second stage of the coaching is generally I'm building out a structure that you can learn from. I'll sometimes show you some tricks on specific heroes that we might recommend. I might drop down your roster pool. I might expand your roster pool. I might tell you have to learn a specific hero. But for the most part, I try to focus on heroes that you already enjoy playing. And then at the end, we go over replays, and we usually hit about 3 on average for replays. When I do look at replays, there's a few things that I like to look for. I like longer replays, I like losses, and I'm most likely not going to watch the entire replay. So at any point during the replay, if I say, oh, they should have won or you should have won, I usually just stop the replay. Because when we start getting into higher ranks and higher competition, the game would actually end at that time. So there's no point in even discussing what happens past the point that either team could have won, because everything after that shouldn't have happened. So sometimes that happens if I say, okay, we're done with this replay. Even if you're like, wait, something cool happens later, it's like, I don't mind watching it. It's just I want to make sure that the time's worth it for you. And so much of these games are decided much earlier than people think. I have so many people that'll send me a replay and they're like, go to the fight at 28 minutes and tell me what should have happened. And I said, well, what should have happened is you guys should have ended before 28 minutes. Right? Exactly. And that's the big thing is like, I tell almost everyone that if both teams hit level 20, it turns into a coin flip. Because level 20 talents are so strong and death timers are so long that if one team can wipe another team because of the level 20 talents that they got, even if they were behind the entire game, most standard team comms have enough siege damage to just close out a game. In fact, as long as there is a fort down, if you wipe another team after level 20, about 95% of teams can end the game. And I mean, it's really straightforward because what'll end up happening is, and this is where a lot of people make a lot of mistakes, and I'll bring it up in game, but if you're ever looking at like a keep, how they have like the tower, they have a tower, I know this is a terrible drawing, and then like you've got your gate and the sidewalls, right? And then you've got your keep, and then let's say we've got the core over here, right? What ends up happening is most teams, even if there's a fort up, you could probably still end the game. Most teams will go and they'll destroy the tower, the gate, the tower, and then the keep, and then they'll go to the core. But you don't actually need to kill these towers. The sidewall has 2,000 health. The tower is 5,300, and the middle gate has 6,300. So if you actually add it all up, these are about 17,000 right here. And hold on, I'm lagging just a teeny bit. I want to see why. Well, let me just close out of Opera. I've got a bunch of tabs going. That's probably why. But yeah, so teams will kill that. Well, the thing is, this is about 17,000 health, and so is the keep. It's about 17,000 health. So if you literally just kill a sidewall and destroy the keep and then go for the core, it's like you just saved yourself the time to kill two keeps. So if you ever see like a team that has time to kill like the front wall and two keeps, you had the time to end the game. And that happens like way too often. And not just that. I mean, this it happens way too often where people waste so much time and energy into this that by the time they finish the keep, they can only get the core halfway down. Well, the core only has 30,000 health, including the shield. So it's like if you could get a core to half health, imagine if you could do 17,000 more damage to that core, it would be over. And that's kind of where the let me close this. Yes, let me close the other one. I think it's just RAM that's causing the slowness. I hope it's just RAM. But yeah, so that's kind of the thing is like that's why I generally want to like finish a game. Or I tell people like you should be able to finish games before level 20, and if not, you're just making it a coin flip. It doesn't matter how many structures you have left. Like a good team can close out a game from a team wipe at level 20, no matter how many structures you have left. So that's pretty much that. That's why I'll cut off a lot of replays, but I still like to see replays that are longer. And my reason why is because that means that the game is closer. I don't ever like watching a stomp. A stomp, oftentimes even the best players can't fix a stomp. If your team's getting stomped, it doesn't matter if you're fan. It doesn't matter if you're. It doesn't matter who you are. If your team's getting stomped, you're gonna have a rough time trying to come back, and that's where it's not even really worth watching those either. So that's where we get into the replay. So those are the three major sections that this coaching is going to go in. So we'll kind of go back to the intro. So hi, I'm NotParadox. I talk too much. And if I ever babble too much, feel free to just stop me. But yeah, so what so I can look at your account. I can see kind of you've been diamond before, high diamond before, and possibly masters. Okay. Mm-hmm. So you said you were Div B. Okay. Okay. And you're the team captain. What's your team name? Okay. Oh, bronze 6. Okay. I get it. I get it. It's good. Okay. Yeah, so it could be a mental block. What I find is when I coach someone who is, let's say, level 150 in game, and they're bronze or silver, um, almost always I can move them up like 3 to 4 tiers. Like I can move them up to like platinum, diamond, even masters within like a few months. Um, the higher level you are, the harder it is to break habits. And so normally what I'll have people do is I'll even just put them on a new role, because it's so hard to break the habits that they've been in their role. In some cases, you can play a new account and just see how far you can get with that new account, and maybe you'll get to a higher rank than you were on your original account just because you feel like you can't screw up this account. You don't have any of the nerves. You are going in with a different mindset. A lot of times when people log on to their Smurf, even if the rank's higher than their main account, logging on their Smurf, they still have that mentality of like, oh, I'm going to be going against people with their lower rank, even if they're not, like. And so you sometimes just go in with more confidence. But yeah, a lot of it is just confidence, and that's the same thing with like tilt too. I mean, tilt messes with your confidence, it messes with your decision making. You stop knowing if you're doing the right or the wrong thing, and you just start struggling. So what we're going to end up doing to kind of see if we can bring back that confidence and bring back the skill and start working on some new skills is we're going to just change your mentality about this. So what role do you play for your team? Yeah. So generally when I coach teams, I tell them all to pick a role. And my reason for it is a role is a mentality, and every role has a different mentality. And it's easier to teach a new hero than it is to teach a mentality. So if you were, let's say, you're a healer main, you're going to be more focused on your team than if you're going to be damage. So you're going to be paying more attention to like your health, your team's mana, and that's something that requires its own skill set. And even if you have someone who's really good at another hero, what that tells me is, well, if they're really good at that other hero, then they're going to be really good at helping your actual damage player learn that hero. And that's kind of where I would recommend that instead, because every time that you change roles, you kind of lose that mentality a little bit too. And the hard part, it's okay to have like one flex player for sure, but it's a rough role to have. Generally, the flex players are not flexing onto everything. They learn the specific heroes that are common to flex on. Abathur, Medivh, let's say like some double healers that might be ran in some situations. That's what a flex player is normally going to be running, is you're actually going to be playing very specific heroes. People assume that flex is just everything, and it's not. It's very specific heroes that are snuck into comps for reasons. Vikings, Abathur, Medivh, sometimes like Zeratul, because those are the ones that you'll need to like sneak in for specific comps, but you don't want to ruin anyone else's role. The tank's still going to be the tank. The healer's still going to be the healer. And that's where flex gets a little confusing. If you're going to run a double healer comp, that's when your flex player needs to learn a healer. But you don't run like a Morales in a double healer comp. You'll run like Ana Uther, or you'll run like Rhaegar or something else. You know, it's like you try to throw in, it's usually a little different. So flex itself is its own role. Just switching back and forth it's fine. I mean, if it's working for your team, definitely. But I just recommend it against it because if you are that role, you should know everything about that role. If I was to tell you, we're going on to Volskaya, let's say Braxis, what healer are you going to bring to Braxis? Dagger Kane. What tank would you bring to Braxis? Okay. Now, Dragonshire. What tank would you bring to Dragonshire? It doesn't really matter. What healer would you do on Dragonshire? So, the reason I bring this up is generally the people that play their role all the time are going to know the best heroes on every map and matchup. If you ever have to solo lane, which I don't think you mentioned, but you're going to need to know the matchups. Who beats Urel in the solo lane? Who beats Malthael? Yeah. So why I'm bringing this up is because everyone should know the best hero for the map and for the comp in their role. And they should know who counters everyone in their role. The more you swap, the harder it is to keep up on all of that information. So even if you're the team captain, you don't need to know all of them. All you need to know is how to coach your team to explain in the right situations and coach your team to learn these matchups. So say, for instance, your soul laner loses against a Malthael. You go, your job before next practice is to find out all the heroes that beat Malthael. You don't need to actually know that. They just need to figure that out because they are the solo laner. As far as healers go, you're going to want to know all the best nano boost targets if you ever want to play Ana. You're going to need to know what comps she's good in. You're going to need to know, let's say, what are the maps Brightwing's good on? What are the comps Brightwing's good on? Deckard. You need to know each of these and when they're actually good. Alexstrasza is one of them that throws people off a lot. People bring up Volskaya a lot. In my opinion, that's one of my least favorite maps for Alexstrasza. You pop Dragon, you only win the point for 15 seconds. You have to win the point for 50 seconds to actually take the point. So winning for 15 seconds isn't going to help that much. They'd walk away, they go grab the turret, and they come back. And now you're just out of your power. So it's like, I don't actually like her on that map. But she was used a lot in the competitive scene. Yet her win rate in the competitive scene on that map was horrible. Out of all her Master League, she had a 40% win rate on Volskaya, and yet that was her second most popular map. Then you go to Infernal Shrines, and she had a 58% win rate as her most popular map. That is a good map for her to be on. So it's like, you need to know all of these things, but unfortunately, the more you swap roles, the harder it is to remember all of that. The way we learn is, our brains are pretty stupid. They're smart, but they're stupid. The way we learn is always in one of two ways: repetition and association. Repetition is pretty much like, is your name Danny in real life? Yeah. If I was to meet you and I saw you, in my mind I might say like Danny, 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 so that I can remember. I see your face, I think Danny. That is repetition. It's probably the most common way people remember things, even when they don't know that they're doing it that way. The more times you do something, the more likely you are to remember it. But the way our brains learn about stuff like this is information will go from you learning something to your working memory. Then in your working memory, it's going to have to determine whether or not this gets thrown out or goes to your long-term memory. And there's also that middle ground of short-term memory as well, which is working memory is kind of like, if you know anything about computers, it's working memory is your RAM. Short-term memory would be like, let's say you build a computer and you cheap out and you end up with like a really small SSD. And then long-term memory would be like a really large drive. you might temporarily put something in short-term memory that's like, I might need that, but then, I mean, it's such a small drive, you've got to like clear it up, right? Like GTA just takes up way too much space, so you just have to get rid of it. But that's the basic idea of how we learn things. Well, the problem is if you don't need something and you don't use it over and over and over, it's just gone. And so, and this is true for every one of these heroes, but it's true for everything in life too. You need to repeat something so many times that your brain's like, this is necessary information. This isn't something that I'm just going to like pick up for a second and then drop off. This is necessary information. And so you're going to be playing the same things over and over and over. And the more you play a role, the better you are at not only the mentality of knowing where to look, because that's the role you're playing, but also more about the knowledge of the role. You'll know the matchups. You'll know who counters what. Garrosh, for example, it's like there's a counter to Garrosh in every role. In the healer role, it's Anduin. In the support role, it's Medivh. In the tank role, I mean, there's a few tanks that can definitely counter Garrosh. In the damage role, it's a little different because they don't have a way to save someone who's thrown, but they have different ways to deal with like his health armor mechanic. If they remove armor, his whole kit is balanced around his armor. So if you draft something that removes armor, then you just ruined his kit. So every role has an answer to it, and so that's the reason I just recommend teams usually stick with one role. Is there's like so many different things that build up, and just having to switch, which is why it's so much easier to just teach. If you're going to be the damage player, just learn Tracer. And use your teammate to help you learn Tracer, you know? So what role would you main if you could? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. Definitely. So now I'm going to do something that's a little, it's going to seem counterintuitive. Um, so I'm going to tell you you have 5 heroes that in Storm League, this is not competitive, just in Storm League, these are the last 5 heroes that you can play. So let's start with tanks. You get to pick 2. What are the 2 tanks that you pick? It doesn't even need to be one that you feel comfortable on. If there's one that you think is strong and you want to learn, that's fine too. But you have 2 tanks, and those are the last 2 tanks you can ever play. Okay. Soul Laner, you have 1. You just have 1. No worries. Range DPS, you have 1. She'll probably get banned a lot. I'm going to tell you to pick a different one. Yeah, Taz is going to get banned a decent amount. And healer, you get 1. Okay. So, the thing about the reason that we're going to do this, you have 5 heroes. I want you to get these 5 heroes down so well that you play them all as if you're like Grandmaster Top 50. It would be very easy to get to Grandmaster Top 50 if you played these like a Grandmaster Top 50, right? So I want you to be that good on all of these heroes that it does not matter what happens. You can win in the majority of situations. In most games, 30% of games are going to be a loss. 30% of games are going to be a win. 40% of games, you actually can just make a difference. But it's hard to know that unless you're smurfing. You're smurfing, it's easy to know, I can have a 70, 80, 90% win rate pretty easily. But the higher or the closer you get to your own rank, you stop learning all the extra little things. But what's surprising that I've found is that there's enough tiny mistakes that are made in games that a lot of people could actually rank up past where they're actually at without needing to be that much better. As long as they're not making like very tiny mistakes, they'll win more than they lose. I can't tell you how many replays I'm watching like a Joanna, and like they barely lose a team fight, and she didn't blind like the auto attacker like even twice in that fight. And then it's like, well, if we just take that auto attacker and we subtract 3 seconds of DPS, suddenly your healer stayed alive for 3 more seconds. Suddenly he got 1 extra heal off that he didn't, and your team won that fight that was already really close off of a single simple mistake that you made. And or same thing, I was just coaching someone who's playing Murden, and the amount of times that he missed his Q, I said, well, how about you use W first so they're slow so it's easier to land your Q. So that all that, like, that's all that it took. And now it's like his suddenly goes from a 45 to a 65% win rate on Murden. And it's because these small mistakes add up when they happen 40 times in a game. So the goal here is to play these heroes to where you never make any mistakes. You're going to get so good at everything that Joanna has to offer that you won't ever make any mistakes. Same thing with Garrosh. You're never going to make any mistakes. Same thing with Dahaka. You're never going to make any mistakes. Same thing, Raynor. You're never going to make any mistakes. And Deckard. And the greatest part about these is these are all 5 heroes that are very versatile. They're heroes that can fit in so many team comps that if you're playing these and you're not making any mistakes, you're going to win a lot more than you lose, because the enemies are going to be making mistakes. They're going to be switching heroes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and they're not going to be as good at any of these heroes as you will be. And they're going to be playing with a full roster pool, and so they're going to be making a ton of mistakes. Not only that, I want you to start limit testing. Limit testing is kind of a meme term in like the League world, but the basic idea is that you're going to go in and you're going to do the craziest thing that you possibly can do in a game and see if it works, right? Maybe on Dahaka, like the current playstyle for Dahaka is a little wild. You're charging into the back line, but you kind of have to do that a few times to see if you can actually do it and when you can do it. Because I'll coach a lot of people on Dahaka, and they're not going in. Like they're not going in when they should be. And I'm like, why not? And he goes, I just never really thought about it. And so one of the guys that I've copied the play style of Dahaka from is he was on an NGS team for a little while, but his name's Unfathomable. He's hit Grandmasters a couple times. He plays nothing but Dahaka. And the way that he plays Dahaka is very aggressive. When he goes in, he goes in. And like it's scary. And if my game crashes, I might need to restart and recall you, because it's being a little weird. I'm looking at my stats on my task manager, and like nothing's being used up, but it's just there's like slight lags, and I don't usually get that. So but if everything's working, then I'm not going to be too worried about it. But yeah, so the thing is like this. Let me. I'll make it a higher level, anyways. And let's get rid of Malfurion. So I don't know why these talents are wrong. So what'll end up happening is like he'll dig like back here. The tank's over here. He'll dig back here and say their backline's here. He'll literally just go right into their backline, and he'll zone out their entire backline, fighting a 1v4 and actually getting kills. While your whole team just kills their tank, and you'll heal through all that damage because you're running into there with adaptation going, and you literally are just healing for all of this. And then you're also getting a ridiculous amount of essence. And all throughout that time, you're healing through all of that. And when you're finally done, you just burrow and you're gone. And then but it's like most fights are decided in the first like 3 to 10 seconds of any given fight. So the fact that like he can do that every single time, and the first 10 seconds of every fight, he's zoning out their entire team and without even really taking any damage, because he's getting all of that back from adaptation. And then after adaptation, he's got a bunch of essence. And it's like, but I watch so many Dahakas that just don't play aggressive enough. I watch so many Dahakas that just don't even know what to do. And the same thing is, I learned this from McIntyre, but another thing is whenever there's an objective about to spawn, what McIntyre does is he'll use all of his abilities on structures. So like there's an objective spawning and everyone's fighting, and he just tears it apart. He uses his tongue, he uses everything. Because I mean, look at how fast you can tear apart a structure even before there's a fight. Now imagine that happening at the start of every like objective fight. You're just ripping through a structure when the enemy leaves. And if the enemy doesn't leave, then you got to use your Z to join your team, and it's a 5v4, and then you just dive right into their backline again. It's unbelievably strong, the playstyle that he has, and a lot of people just don't know it, and that's why you need a limit test to see what you can do and what you can't do. Because you'd be surprised at like how much you can survive and just tear people apart on Dahaka if you just charge into their team, pop adaptation, and just tear apart everything, gain back the initial amount, pop your essence to get the next amount of health back, and same thing, like you just survive through all of this. Remember, you've got spell armor this whole time, 50 spell armor because of this talent. So it's like you're taking half damage from their backline and you're just diving right in. So that's what limit testing is all about. The next thing is like knowing how long it takes you to do everything too. If you play nothing but Dahaka, you should know how long it takes you to clear a wave, because then you'll know, hey, can I double soak at this level or can I not? This is level 20, so naturally you should be able to double soak. Just throw your W, couple auto attacks, and that should be all that it takes. Now you go to the next lane, and travel time should be fine. Same thing, you get down to this lane, you do W, auto attack 3 or 4 times, and then you just head back up to this lane again. Like, you can double soak. But at what level can you start double soaking on Dahaka? That's the question that you need to know, because that's important, because double soaking is something that's only really used between levels 17 and 6, or sorry, between levels 7 and 16 on most maps. So, can you double soak on Dahaka at level 7? Oh yeah. No, I mean that's definitely a good idea. But there are a lot of times, like during objectives, where like when you've already won an objective, there's no point in staying. Like if you're on Infernal Shrines and you wipe their team, just leave and go double soak. Burrowing in the middle of a team fight, or brush talking in the middle of a team fight, is always so strong. It's really, really good. You generally want to do it. I see too many Dahakas that'll brush talk right as the fight starts. It's like, no, you want to be getting as much value in lane. If they leave early, you want to take everything and punish them for leaving early. And if they leave late, then you want to be at that fight right when the fight starts, forcing a 5v4 for the longest period of time. But as early as level 7, you can actually double soak on most maps. Generally, you want to hit a bush on the way down. There's no bushes here, but like on a map like Cursed Hollow, there's bushes all the way through. On a map like Towers of Doom, there's bushes in between. So you can double soak on a lot of these maps. You just need to know when, which is usually after you've already won an objective or after you've already lost an objective. Between 7 and 16, you generally want to try to double soak. You can get a lot done in your lane, but soaking's the most important thing in the early portions of the game, because soak's worth more experience than like almost anything else until about level 13. And then it starts being more structures. And because you can't really do camp clear on Dahaka, you should be trying to clear up lanes so that the people that are worried about lanes can go do camps. If you have a Greymane on your team, but he has to hold a lane, what's the point of having a Greymane on your team, right? He can do a ton of camp clear, but if he's stuck in the lane the whole time, it's pointless. So that's why you want to cover that lane for him. Your tank will cover the third lane, but as long as you can cover the double soak, Greymane can go do camps. So you play to your strengths, he plays to his strengths. But there's so much on Dahaka that you can do if you like start limit testing. You start pushing your limits of going, okay, how fast can I clear this lane, and can I go to another lane? What's my ability? Like, if you ever catch someone out of position, can you actually kill them on Dahaka? Like, that's another thing that you might need to figure out. Who can you kill? What amount of health can you kill someone? If you see a Jaina that's pushing up, at what level can you actually kill that Jaina? And these are the things that you need to be able to answer if you want to be more effective on these heroes. Because if you could start off a objective every time and kill someone before you do the objective, that's huge. So you need to know what heroes that you're playing have the ability to do that. If I ran out and just immediately started attacking Jaina right now, most likely I can't kill her. She's a bot, so she would have already been gone if she was actually a player. Even with like this going, it's like I can do half of a Jaina's health at level 7 during the course of a drag. So if you find a Jaina at half health, you can get a kill. But if she's not at half health, you can't get a kill. You don't need to know this with everyone, but you need to get a general idea to know if it's worth it to stop and kill Jaina, or if it's better to keep double soaking, or if it's better to keep pushing. And in order to make those decisions, you have to know this information. And that's another reason why you need to be playing that same hero over and over and over and over and over, so that every game you can learn something new. Because if you keep learning something new, you just keep adding it on to the hero that you're at, and then you keep doing that thing and solidifying that information. So you practice double soaking for a little bit, and after you practice double soaking, then you go and you start actively trying to kill people. You realize that you can't really kill people unless they're like really low health, so you stop doing it and you remove that from your memory. And then you go and you start looking at camps. You can't do a camp, you remove that from your memory until every second of your time is being used efficiently in some way, and the most efficient method, because you don't want to be wasting your time doing something that you can't be doing. So that's why you kind of need to do everything. But the problem is when people keep changing heroes that they're playing all the time, then they keep forgetting the things that they can and can't do. They're like, oh, I can't remember. Could I do a camp? Could I double soak on this character? I don't even remember. Because you just don't play him enough. You want to get it to the point where you've done these things so many times that you're like, I can do this. I know how long it takes. This is the level that I can start doing it. And you go from there. And you should know that, sure. There's a few methods. I mean, hopefully what we're going to do is we're going to look at replays and we're going to see if we can just tear them apart from there. The other thing is you want to just try to imagine the hero as someone else. And that's really hard to do, but you try to do something else with that hero. So if you're approaching like a wave, let's say you're on Joanna and you approach a wave, you try to look at it and go, okay, how am I doing this wave? And is there a way I can do it differently? And you just try like 3 or 4 different ways. You can do it on a Smurf because that does kind of help a little bit with practicing like the different play styles, because you could be like, oh, the enemies are bad, let me practice what it's like against these like bad players. But the thing about it is like you just want to try out new things, and you want to play one hero endlessly while trying new things. Even if something feels natural, like every way that you do the wave clear, it's like, okay, well, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do auto, mount up, and go. It's like, so I've already kind of determined the efficient way of doing that. But what I would probably do in the beginning is I would go, okay, well, why do I do shield glare first when I could do condemn first while I'm still mounted? And then I'll try it out. And I'll go, okay, well, let's try condemn first and then Q. oh, well, now I can't break all of these easy enough with the sins exposed, right? So I'm like, okay, so that's why I do the E first. And you try to determine like what is the best way to do it. One thing that I was teaching this guy on Joanna recently was I said, you play so hard set. Like if you're like Murden, you like stand still in auto a lot. And I said, I want you to be a little bit more smooth when you're doing everything on Joanna. I want you to like go pull everyone in and then slow and get yourself out at the same time, because you have such small cast times on Joanna. You can actually do that. So this way we can like use your E, use your W, pull them in, slow them, and move out immediately. And you can have more of a fluid movement. And that's another thing too, is there's a lot of strategies that I'm going to teach you that are just general on everyone. In and out play style. If you've never heard it, the basic idea is you go in when you have abilities, you get out when you don't. So with Joanna, it's going to look like this. Maybe an auto and then trait on your way out, possibly. You might not even need the trait. You mount up and you kind of stay on the edge to see where your team is, and you're going to go back in when you have abilities again. Maybe pull them away from your team. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing: is it's also a bit comp based. Joanna's great at that, but let's say I go to someone like a Diablo, and we're gonna do burst versus counter burst. What I might do is I might go with a. Let me go to level 16. So if I'm playing Diablo, this doesn't really matter. What might happen in a bursty fight is, I don't think that's going to be in range to knock it into a wall, but we'll try. You're going to throw out a W, a Q, flip, W, and fire breath, all in under a few seconds. The amount of DPS you do is pretty high. You're also reducing all of the enemy's damage. You're also increasing your spell power, which is going to be increasing your self-healing from Souls to the Flame. And you can even get up to 3 of these out at the same time. He's going to want a fast fight that ends in 5 seconds, right? And Diablo's also just one of those in general that kind of wants that anyways, because if you've got a Tyrande or something, you charge and then flip, and your Tyrande stuns, you just got to kill. So you're generally going to want something like that anyways, that is going to want those fast fights. So that's kind of comp dependent on what kind of fight you want. One of the comps I recommend a lot for new teams that are practicing their shot calling is the training wheels, which is Varian, Taunt Varian, into Tyrande, into Jaina. Taunt Varian keeps them still long enough for Tyrande to stun them. Between taunts and Tyrande's stun, you end up with them standing still long enough for all of the blizzard waves to get off on the same person. And that's enough damage to kill just about anyone in the game, especially when you're lowering their armor from Tyrande. So that comp right there is great for people practicing how to learn how to combo off someone until you go against an Ariel who just presses Crystal Aegis on the person you taunt. Then the next stun doesn't go off, and everyone who's sitting in range to attack that target is going to take a whole bunch of damage from Crystal Aegis. So every comp can be countered. But the goal is to build a comp that fits a wide range of scenarios, but also still does something that you want it to do. It's okay to get countered as long as you're really good with your comp, because then you can play around the counter. Well, Taunt's a 15-second cooldown, but Crystal Aegis is a 60-second cooldown. So even though this is a counter, you can bait the Crystal Aegis by just charging without taunting, move everyone around, and then just charge in and taunt someone else when this is on cooldown. So that's the thing, is there are a lot of playstyles you want to do. In and out's not always the best method, but in Storm League, it's certainly going to be the best because you're not coordinated enough to blow up whoever you're going in on. And Joanna doesn't have that great of an engage, or at least that obvious of an engage. Best case, you've got Subdue and Blessed Shield. You subdue first, you get 2 people, your team gets close enough to kill something, and then you Blessed Shields if they stay there longer, gives you a higher chance of getting a kill. But it really just depends on a lot of factors on how your team actually wants to play. So in and out works, but like same thing like ETC, it's more like peel, wait for a mistake, slide, kill the target. He's just too low to deal with burst. And as far as sustain, like even high sustain damage will kill ETC too fast. So Mal'Ganis wants more long, drawn-out fights. If you guys like that brawly nature, you should be playing Mal'Ganis a lot. Just because he likes those long, drawn-out, brawly fights. If you're fighting on Volskaya's point, and you can survive like the initial burst of a team, you could just sit and fight forever with Mal'Ganis. Same thing with like auto-attack Diablo. Like, he wants a long, brawly fight. But some people don't. Some people want fast, bursty fights, like Anubarak and Q-Build, Diablo, etc. Like, they all want fast fights where when you slide on a target or when you jump on a target, like, that target dies. So you just need to keep in mind that your team comp does what it's supposed to do, and I recommend drafting that in like 3 people rather than like don't put your whole comp into it, because if you put your whole comp into it and like the taunt gets cleansed or something, or Medivh shielded, your whole comp's dead. But if you can plan it out to where 3 members force Medivh to use something, then the other 2 members just kill the rest of their team, like, that's good. But yeah, with all of that, that's kind of the reason for that. So that's Dahaka. What builds do you go on some of these heroes? So like, let's say Deckard, for example. What build do you normally go? Okay. Okay. I would change a lot of this for a few reasons. This is the build that a lot of people are going right now. This is essentially the meta build. I personally think the meta build's wrong, and I'll explain with math. Field study. Why do you take this talent? Sure. Here's the thing that's kind of frustrating about how spell power works in Heroes of Storm. All increases are additive, and they all compete with each other by being additive. So if you're going to take Field Study and you're also going to take Super Healing Potion, here's the problem with this. If I was to pull up the calculator really quick, and another notepad, more notepads, here's what happens. Okay, you have Super Healing Potion, which is going to increase it by 120%. So it's plus 120%, or it's 2.2 times whatever the actual heal was. Well, here's the thing. If you were to increase that by 40, which is the most, that's assuming you hit 2 people with it, instead of it being 2.2, which you're multiplying it by, it's going to be 2.6. So if you're actually curious about how much of an increase this is, it's only actually increasing it by 18% as far as the healing. It's not as much as that 40%, which it looks like. And that math gets even worse when you get to Scroll of Stone Curse, because it's 200%. So if you ever take this talent it's even worse. It's only about 12% increase in damage. But what I find on Deckard is, I find it's rarely, if you're going Ruby anyways, or you're going super healing anyways, I almost never see people need the extra 40 healing. I mean, like, super healing, if you can get to the potion, you're like full healed. If you can't get to the potion, you're dead. Like, there's no in between, I find. And the same thing with Ruby. If you can go pick up any of the rubies, you could probably pick up all of them, and you're going to get full healed. If you can't get to the rubies, you're dead. So for me, extra spell power and healing doesn't seem that good to me. Now, Sapphire, that's a 65% slow. That almost guarantees that you're going to land your root. I think this is a much better talent, but I think people are so bad at it that the win rates dropped and field studies increased because it's just easier. Level 4, I think Ruby's okay, but I think it depends on your tank. Can your tank actually move around the fight, or is your tank going to not be able to move around that much? And ETC, after his slide's done, he has the same mobility as anyone else, except for he's probably going to be getting hit by slows and stuff. And that's always going to be thrown out to the enemies, so you won't ever be able to use this to heal your allies. In the competitive scene, Ruby was almost never taken. Now, it has been buffed like 4 times, but it was almost never taken back when HGC, because it's like, it's unreliable. The heals go way too far away from most of your team. So if you're winning, it's great. If you're losing, it's really bad, because you're going to throw it and your whole team's running away. None of them ever get healing from this, which is why they always went Potion of Shielding, because when the target that the enemy team is trying to kill is taking damage, most likely they're going to be CC'd. So this is the most amount of healing on a CC'd target, being the best at preventing a death on the target the team's trying to attack. Level 7, honestly, it depends on the teams. I think I think all of these talents are viable. Kanai's Cube, it just depends. How much damage is going to be in their front line? Because you probably aren't going to be in range to hit their back line with a W. So is the majority of a team's damage in their front line, or is it in the back line? Most team comps is in the back line, but some team comps is in the front line. If it's in the front line, I think this talent's great. If most of your damage is a mage and a ranged DPS in the back line, I don't think you should ever go this talent. Emerald's great. It's just a good talent. If your team ever engages, you can use Emerald. If you have to engage, you have to use Sapphire, or else you're not going to be able to engage. Level 10 Stay Wild. I like Stay Wild. It's really good. Lornado I take on Tomb of the Spider Queen sometimes, just because the hallways are so small that if you ever just want to like push everyone away from you guys in the hallway, they all get pushed away. Or if you want to force a fight, you just pull everyone in the hallway to you. It's kind of like a really slow gust at that point. 13, Ancient Blessings in competitive scene is insanely strong. But super healing against poke teams is incredibly strong. Like, they're, again, situational talent for sure. This talent, like, if people can get to this, they're about to get healed for like half their health, pretty much. The problem is getting to this. You can't throw it directly on someone, so you have to throw it near them. And if they're CC'd, which in the competitive scene, people are just going to get CC'd the whole time, they're dead. So against heavy poke, sure, grab it. If they're running like Chromie and Gul'dan or something, like, they're never going to get a kill if you take this talent. But if they've got a standard team comp that's going to try to blow up targets, this is going to feel like a dead talent, and this is going to feel like a much better talent. This is also just really good for sieging. If you ever get to a point where you're like level 16, you wipe their team, you run straight to their keep, pop this, keep dies. This, at level 16, if all 5 members get it and they all attack faster than 1 time per second, this is equivalent to 3,500 damage. It's crazy. Level 16, I despise this talent. And I'm sorry, because I know you explained it and you like it. Here's the reason why I despise this talent. The positioning in a team fight. If your tank's here and you need 3 people near you, that means that you're here and the radius is like this. that means that you have to have a bunch of people all clustered just to get this value. And that, if there's an ETC right here, like, he slides and he just moshes and you all die. And it's not even an ETC. I mean, even if it's like a Gul'dan that's just boom, horrify, you're all dead. If it's an Orphea and she does a Crushing Jaws combo, half your team's dead. If it's an Imperius and he's in Q build, half your team's dead. There's so many people in this game that if you're clustered this much, you're dead. And that extra armor is going to feel nice on you until you're surrounded by your team's corpses. Like, you won't die, but they will. They're not the ones getting that armor. So that's the thing, is like, Deckard's already a really tanky healer. Like, he's really hard to kill alone. And if you're worried about a diver, go staff. This is literally a better version of Uther's stun. Uther's stun lasts 0.75 seconds and has a 10-second cooldown. Herodric's staff has a 5-second cooldown and lasts the same amount of time, and it doesn't cost any mana. It's literally just better in every way than Uther's stun, and people were literally drafting comms around Uther's stun. So it's like that. It's just so good if they've got a diver, and if they don't, Stone Curse is 1,000 damage in the position of a healer. If you ever just want to win a team fight, and that's where, like, sometimes I'll even recommend Cube Mastery. If you're playing alone and the enemies are, let's say, like, they're just grouping up a lot, I mean, you literally can just be doing crits of 1,000 left and right. 1,000 is a third of someone's health. Like, what healer can do a third of someone's health in burst? I mean, very few. Very few. And especially from a safe position. So I wouldn't recommend safety in numbers. And find level 20, I agree. I don't really like flasks for the same reason as... Now, this one, I think I'm just wrong on this one. Because when HEC was around, this talent was picked, and I still thought it was bad, and it got nerfed 3 times. So I'm just going to say I'm wrong on this talent, and it's probably way better than I think. But teamfights move around a lot. And I find that when they move around a lot, all your old potions are useless. Where Respect the Elderly is like game-changing. If you can get a good one, I mean, the fight's over. You just won that fight. But I could definitely be wrong on level 20. The other ones, like, I definitely would adjust. It's going to give you way more impact. Rather than just following around your tank and hoping he does what's good, you just set up for your team. You do a Sapphire into a Scroll of Stone Curse, and you alone just set up, hitting 2 or 3 people for 1,000 damage. And they're all rooted for 1.5 seconds. Right after that, you could pop a Stay while they're all rooted, and then boom, they're all blinded and silenced. Like, who cares if your tank's not setting up for your team? If your team's nearby, you just won that fight for them. And then you could also pop an Ancient Blessings right as you get that thing off, that Respect the Elderly off. Like, you won a team fight on your merit alone. And that's the power of Deckard, is he is one of the best team fighting healers in the game. To the point that Deckard had almost 100% popularity in HGC, and that was after all of those nerfs. And then after HGC was over, they buffed him a whole bunch. In my opinion, he is the best competitive healer in the game right now, by far. Yeah. Yeah. You'd be surprised at how often even the good teams, because this talent was actually the popular talent in HGC. So even against good teams, you'd be surprised at how many times 2 people will get hit by a triangle, because in the middle of a fight, everyone's paying attention to too many things. And don't forget, you also have your own combo to guarantee that lands if you want to do it in a different order. So, for example, let's say that you see a perfect fight where it's like, man, if we can engage on this, it's over. We just won. And that's where, instead of going with instead of going with like a Sapphire combo, which is probably what you would see most likely you'd want to do, like you do a Sapphire combo, right? Slow him. He's slowed long enough to where he gets hit by the root. That's pretty easy if you're trying to catch people that are running away, because you just throw it slightly in front. It's like you're going to hit two people. If not, they're going to walk into your team. So you can, one, put people in an impossible situation. The other option is, worst case, just do this. They're slept until the root goes off. Literally, like that's all you have to do is just you go in from a flank, you do an ER, they get slept, because this takes almost 2.5 seconds to land the root. That's why it's so hard to land. This only takes a second. So it's like, if you pop out of nowhere and for 1 second, if they don't realize it, you just rooted everyone into 1,000 of their health. And that's why it's so strong, is like, there's so many opportunities. So Deckard has a million different things that you can do. The problem I find with Deckard is he's kind of rough in like Storm League, because like, yeah, it's like people don't pick up potions. Team fights go a little bit less coordinated, and he's not as good as like taking like really long fights. Where someone like a Lucio, someone just presses E a couple times and you're back in the fight again. Your whole team's back in the fight again. He's much better if the fights go how they should go, like in coordinated. So that's the thing about him. But there's a ton to do on Deckard. That's what I would recommend, is just a variation of that build when you're playing in competitive. What's your build on Raynor? Okay. I'm just going to give you a slightly different build. Unless you're on BOE, just go Ace in the Hole. I would say BOE or Garden of Terror. Garden of Terror, the cam clear is definitely going to be important. You have enough wave clear on Raynor already. You don't really need it for wave clear. And as far as camps, you can do the basic camps, but you shouldn't need it that often. Ace in the Hole, it's flat 10% increased damage on everything that you do, including Hyperion. Or Raynor's Raider or whatever. It's just 10% more damage, and the slow allows you to kite people, and the slow allows you to chase people. Then fight or flight's fine. Unstable compounds, what I recommend. Increased area on your crit, as well as gives you some mana, and it reduces the cooldown of your almost all of your abilities, just everything but your heal. And so that's really strong. 10, until you're really good at Raynor, just only go Hyperion. Even like Lutano, who's considered one of the best mechanical players in North America, he said even in HGC he didn't like taking Raynor's Raider because it was just too much work and too many things to like pay attention to. So he said most of the time he just took Hyperion. He goes, it's still a good ult. He's like, you lose a little bit of single target damage, but you can at least make sure that you're kiting correctly, and that's going to allow you way more single target damage over the course of a fight. Level 13, Giddy Up was definitely meta for the longest period of time. I've been recommending Debilitating Rounds more. What it does is it reduces the mana cost and cooldown of your Q, and then while Inspiring Rounds active, your Q slows more. All that this really is going to do is it's going to lower the cooldown of your Q, which is going to make Paint Them Red a lot stronger, because this is already a really powerful talent. And this makes it where like no diver can ever get to you. And also, if you ever want to like hit someone and slow them a lot and then chase them down, it's really strong because you can pop your W and then Q. And then at level 20, yeah, Execute's really good. If you do end up taking Raider, the upgraded Raider is surprisingly good. It's crazy. I don't know. It's like I was watching Lutano play, and he was playing Tracer, and this literally kills Tracer, and she can't kill it. It will out trade Tracer every time. And so he was just letting this follow Tracer around the entire time, and well, the enemy Rainer was doing that, and Tracer could never do anything in any team fight. So this is just a really good talent. But that's if you actually take it. If not, execute's fine. It's just going to be a much more consistent build in more areas, and it'll just be a lot easier to pick up. But that's the basic idea from that. Dahaka, what build do you normally go? Yeah. Yeah, the old meta was to go tissue regen, and it still is a good build. So the old meta, the basic idea of tissue regen was you wanted to be able to get up to like 60 essence, so that you could use primal rage to like destroy structures to get that 60% extra damage. And so you would use your global very infrequently, and you would simply just destroy like the entire enemy base while you're waiting to jump into a team fight. Then you jump into a team fight right behind the enemy team. You just, whatever bush is like in the middle of a fight, you jump in, pop ISO, you drag someone, and that was pretty much the basic idea of what you did in the old build. So it'd be tissue regen, it would be one who collects, so that you could level up tissue regen faster. Then it would be lower cooldown on your Q because it was just more siege damage. And then finally you'd go isolation because that's what you do in team fights. And then you would go into primal rage so you could have way more siege damage. And then level 16 you'd go with just drag range just because it would just be beneficial in team fights. And then finally you'd go contagion because it was good in team fights. And that was the whole reason pros used Dahaka was siege like crazy and then jump to your team and make a big play. Well, after some buffs to certain talents, Ferocious Stalker got a buff, Enduring Swarm got a buff, and Symbiosis got a buff. And when all three of these got a buff, the W builds became kind of a team fighting monster. Like, there are games where I'll be playing Dahaka and I'll literally just walk into their backline and they just can't kill me, and I'll just kill like 2 or 3 people in their backline, and I'll do that every single fight. And it's crazy strong. The downside is you lose out on like the movement speed from, because this build used to use this enhanced agility. That was the talent that people would use with this playstyle because you moved like so fast, you could immediately charge in their backline. Instead, this got spell armor, which it didn't used to have. So people like have to take this talent. So what they do instead is they get the slow on this talent. So instead of you moving 20% faster, you're making everyone else move 15% slower. So it's effectively the same thing. But the cool part about going this route is you don't need to be near a bush, which is where this build ends up being a little bit better on a map like Volskaya, where there's a lot less bushes around where team fights are. You can just walk right up to them, and as long as you land a W, they're all slowed by 15%. And that's why this build's so good. And then you just take tunneling so you can leave once like you've already popped your ult, and once you've already popped everything, you can just use tunneling claws to get out. But yeah, it's a crazy strong build. And I mean, I always thought adaptation was really dumb until I played against this once, and I was like, you just can't kill him. If you don't attack him, he never pops it, and he kills your entire team. If you do attack him, he pops it, and you have to stop attacking him, but then he kills your entire team. Like, there's no way around it. It's one of the most annoying builds to play against. And when Unfathomable was running the enhanced agility version before Enduring Swarm got buffed, he had like a 65% win rate with Race Car Dahaka, playing essentially the same thing. But since this has been buffed, it's so much stronger. So it's like, imagine that guy who got up to Grandmasters with like a 65% win rate at Dahaka, and imagine that the build that he played just got better. And that's what you're left with, is just this like ridiculously annoying high damage, because it's a lot of damage too. Like, the amount that you do from just your W is pretty crazy. But yeah, so that's Dahaka. I would try that build out. Now keep your build in the back of your mind for sure, because in competitive, on a map like Cursed Hollow where your team could stall for a long period of time, you can still go the tissue regen into the Primal Rage build. And you just need to be more willing to siege. You need to be more willing to like get a bunch of stuff done while the enemy's rotating. So like if you're in top and the objective spawns bottom, and he starts leaving, even on the first objective, you should be able to take all the front walls, and then you can join the team. And by like the level 10, level 13-ish, you can pretty much take a fort in the time that it takes someone to mount up and go down and join the team. You can take an entire fort. If you're left alone for a long time, or like if your team has a lot of poke to just stall the objective, like you could just take a keep with just like auto attacks, couple Qs, and stuff like that. Like it's insane how much siege damage that old meta build has. So it just depends on what you think that you're going to need. Do you need more of a team fight? Like, is your team just going to lose a team fight if you're not there? Or if you're in competitive, can they stall a little bit for you to just siege? Like either way certainly works. Joanna, what's your build usually? Okay. Yeah. So what I'm gonna say is I used Joanna to move up in rank on multiple accounts. Almost every time that I hit around platinum on any of my accounts, if I'm going up, I'm gonna tank because I just feel like tanks in platinum and diamond are just awful. And I feel like everyone's mechanics are pretty good. I feel like their decision making is terrible. So if I can tank, I feel like I can at least trust most of my healers and damage to at least do what's right. I maybe complete subdue once every 3 games, and I still take it because as long as you hit 2, you still get the full value. And most of the time, you're going to be going in, you're going to be hitting 2. So it's perfectly fine to take it even if you don't ever finish the quest. Blessed Momentum, I did when I'm like lower rank, and it still works. Like, here's the thing. The build by Ishbu, who is the #1 tank in North America during HGC, he went Laws of Hope into Sins Exposed, into Blessed Momentum. He took Blessed Hammer and he took Holy Renewal. He just went full E build, and he did that in competitive. And there's been no change on Subdue. So it's still a viable option, but I just find that Subdue for team fights is so good by how people are playing now that I would recommend that more often than not. Even though Blessed Momentum definitely has its time. I also just think like auto attacking on tanks these days is just so risky because people are just much more likely to just blow up tanks. And if your team's like not paying that much attention, you're not getting as much value from staying in fights for a long time. However, if you are playing more brawly, like you said that your team likes to play, I think Momentum is better than Subdue. But I think for you, I want you to practice a little bit more Subdue. What do you take at 10 usually? Cool. 13? Yeah. Same thing. Like if you're gonna take Roar, you might as well take Subdue. If you're gonna take Momentum, I recommend Hammer, just because you can lower the cooldown of your E, which means that you can lower the cooldown of your Blessed Hammer. Level 16, what do you normally take? I'd recommend playing around with Fanaticism. It increases the duration of Iron Skin by 2 seconds, and it pretty much just gives you 40% movement speed while your trait's up. And if you're going to be taking Hold Your Ground, your trait's going to be up. Nobody's going to do, what is it, like, at level 20, it's a 2,000 health shield or something. It's like, that's not going to happen. So you just move 40% faster, which means it's a lot easier to land your Subdue and land your Roar. if you can move around the team fight faster than mount speed, and you're unstoppable, which means they can't slow you, so you're everywhere. So I'd recommend playing around with it just a little bit. So essentially, the build that I'm giving you is Leon Black's build. If you've ever watched the streamer Leon Black, um, he runs Sins Exposed. He runs Subdue, Shield, Roar into Fanaticism, and then Radiating Faith. And I recommend essentially the same thing now. It's kind of the best of both worlds between the like old scoop builds and the E build. I still like going just the E build. I think it's still really viable if you need to blind a lot of backliners, or you just want like more sustained healing and sustained damage. Then I think that the full E build is still really good. Same rules apply for Laws of Hope and Hold Your Ground. I say almost the same thing when I talk to people. If you don't trust your healer, go Laws of Hope, or if they're heavy poke, goes Laws of Hope. In every other situation, go Hold Your Ground. And then Radiating Faith is just too good to pass up. Like, Indestructible, I want you to play a little bit more fluid. Play in and out, you won't need Indestructible until you're in like the highest levels of competitive, and even then, your team should be able to follow up a good Radiating Faith. Blinded by the Light, you can take in one situation, which is that the enemies have a fast diver who has the ability to 100-0 a backliner. It's kind of the only reason that you'll ever take Blinded by the Light or ETC's Storm Shield. Is like, let's say, for example, they have a Zeratul who's going Might of the Nerazim. He has just enough damage to kill a backliner and disappear. Well, if you give him a 25% shield, now he doesn't have enough damage to kill a backliner, and suddenly that whole build is out the window. That whole build is garbage now. So all it takes is one talent to completely ruin Zeratul. This seems like a really good option for that talent. So that's the only time that I'll tell people to take this talent. Otherwise, Radiating Faith is just busted. It's a range mosh pit, essentially. And then Indestructible, it's good if people are focusing you a lot. And that's still fine if people are focusing you a lot. But it's still one of those things of like, well, what if I stop their entire team for 2 seconds or 1.75 seconds? Is that still... Am I still going to die? Or is that, so that's the tricky part about that. But yeah, I mean, overall, your Joanna build's pretty close to what I run. And then finally, Garrosh is the last one. What build do you normally run on Garrosh? Yeah, probably defensive, I'd imagine. I don't, okay. Okay. I'm going to adjust your build just a teeny bit. Purely because of this build was the meta build in competitive for a long period of time. But there's been buffs, there's been nerfs, and I'll also explain when Decimate's a good build. So the idea of this build is that you want to set up a great fight for your team, and you do that by getting a quick pick. So let's say they've got a Jaina. Where's Jaina? And I'll just go hide in a bush so that Jaina runs forward. So the thing about Garrosh is, good lord, these bots never do what they need to do. This build is all about just having the best forced team fight. So again, throw someone into your team, taunt them once they're there, and that's essentially it. That's this build. Well, there's ways to make it a little bit more reliable instead of going Earthshaker. So the reason that people will still go Earthshaker is if you need to like interrupt Mosh. If your Q's already on cooldown, you can throw something to interrupt Mosh. If you don't need to interrupt anything, try out Mortal Combo. It gives you kind of a second shot in a team fight because it's going to give you a lower cooldown. Watch the cooldown for E. It shaved off 10 seconds, and now we get that kill, and we're closing in on being able to throw a second person. And the second person, you can always just do like a throw taunt instead of a throw Q. And this gets even better with Titanic Might, which I think they actually did fix this bug, but you can throw both and then stun, and it instantly refreshes the cooldown. So that's another thing, is if you throw two people, suddenly you have almost no cooldown on that ability, and you can immediately throw two again. So what ends up happening is if you're ever in a fight and you just want to have your team kill two people, you go like this. Throw them here, throw them further, and you just go taunt their back line. And now your team kills their front line. And it's that easy. And that's why this combo right here on 16 and 20 makes him like super impactful, especially if you're ever against someone like a Malthael, who's going to be in the front line, but he's squishy. So you literally just throw, your team blows up Malthael, and you walk up to their back line and taunt him so your team doesn't die. That is going to be a lot more impactful. Now, are you good at both of the combos for Garrosh, like the Q and then the E one and then the EQ one? So EQ, I mean, you've seen I've done it like 4 times now. EQ is so that you can throw someone first. You generally mount up or you use bushes to get up to people first. And then there's QE, which is normally Q Indomitable E. So what you'll do is you'll find an enemy. Generally, bots are going to be running away. But you Q, Indom, E. And in order to make it, if you ever want to use this against people who have escapes, you want to taunt midair. And you combo that alongside everything else. So this is something that you'll definitely want to get good at if you're going to be playing a lot of Garrosh. Is you want to make sure that you can Q. I mean, it's a bot, but let's say it landed. Indom, E taunt midair. You see how now she can't use her escape because she's taunted for 2 seconds. So because you're not going to be getting that extra Q off, that stuns for 0.5 seconds, it's a really strong combo for catching like a Genji, and you can like taunt the Genji midair, your team kills the Genji, and he never gets time to dash or deflect. But yeah, learning the 2 combos in and out is going to be your bread and butter, and knowing when to use which combo is also going to be very important. If you can ever go into a bush that the enemies are going to walk through, always going to be an EQ. If you're ever just going to see if you can engage in a fight for your team, it's generally going to be a QE because you're going to get dismounted. And so that's the basic idea of when you should be using those 2 combos. Now, the reason Decimate has been getting so popular is just because this build has been getting buffed like over and over and over. And so the way that this build works is you still have your throat stun, but you don't have taunt, and you don't have Indomitable, and you don't have End of the Fray. You can have End of the Fray if you want, but you don't really need it. And instead of playing Garrosh like a tank, you're going to play him like a bruiser, but you also will tank because you have an engage still. Your engage is still EQ, which is fine. But instead of using a QE, you have body check. So it's easier because it's point and click. It's easier to land body check. So let's say, for example, let me refresh Forts. Let's say instead of trying to land a Q to start a fight, we're just going to stay mounted. And when we see Jaina, we're going to slow her with body check, which is 30% slow or 35% slow. And then we're going to go up, we're going to throw stun, and then we're going to auto W auto, right? And you can do 70% of someone's health just with that alone. It's really, really powerful. And so you get that talent, which is pretty good. And all you're really doing is you're going to be taking talents that are either really strong on their tier, or you're going to be taking talents that just synergize well. So you're going to be taking this one that reduces the cooldown of your W when you basic attack something. The reason you're taking that is because at level 13, you're going to be taking Blood Craze, and you're also going to be taking Seasoned Soldier. Level 7, you can go with any talent. Any of these are fine. Into the Fray is fine. Impression's fine. Intimidation's fine. Either one works. I generally like a Pressure because you're going to be walking through their team. And same thing, you're going to play this like Mal'Ganis. You're going to walk into their backline, and you're just going to be auto-attacking them in their backline. and they're all going to be slowed because Decimate slows for 40%. So it's going to be easy to just walk into their team, and you're going to have a ridiculous amount of healing because of Blood Craze and because of Thirst for Battle. So what's going to happen is the fight's going to look like this. You go into their backline, you're just going to go like this. Maybe throw someone into your team, and you're going to walk right into their backline again. And that's just how you're going to play it out. Like, you literally, every fight's going to be like this, where you're just popping your ults to slow people. You're going to like W onto one person. You're going to just walk past, and then you're going to grab someone, just chuck it into your team, and you're going to continue just auto-attacking, Wing, auto-attacking, decimating, and you're just this huge disruption, and you're just so hard to kill. If I was to change the enemy hero to, like, let's go with a, I don't know, like a Malthael. And then I take Seasoned Soldier, and then I take Deadly Calm, and let me toggle cooldowns just so I can get my mana back. Watch how I fight this Malthael underneath his towers. Like, look at how long I can fight this guy. I mean, hopefully he doesn't use his ult, but you know what I mean? Like, boom, he's dead. It's I can literally kill a Malthael under his towers, and I'm just out healing everything. So this is kind of like a Mal'Ganis build. Like, you want to be in there out healing everything that the enemies are doing, and the lower health you get, the harder you're going to be to kill because of your armor, but also your W heals way more at lower health. So this is super easy to just walk past. You'll throw that into your team, and you'll just walk past and go straight into their backline. And you'll just heal back up. Auto attack lowers healing with this, because this lowers healing. Like, you literally just walk through their team. So as far as impact in a game, if your team's willing to follow up everything that you do, the other build's better. But if you're not sure about your team, or they're going to be brawling a lot more, this build is way better. This build is actually busted. If either team is less coordinated than like a pro team, this team is actually, or this build is like actually busted. It's so good. So, with all of that, these are your 5 heroes. And my goal is that you... Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, Rainer's still a meta range DPS. Maka... he was in Celeb TV, one of the NA teams, and they won like every game, and he was playing Rainer like a huge portion of those games. Dahaka is still meta. He's pretty much always been meta. He just kind of fell out of Storm League a lot because his build that people were using in competitive was not good in non-competitive. Now people are slowly finding the W build. Garrosh, oh yeah, I mean, he's a meta tank for sure. He gets countered pretty easy, but even then, he's still really good. He's great on like Dragonshire, where there's that like triangle in the middle of just bushes, and it's like you just sit there and everyone has to walk through it, or else they have to walk like really far around. Joanna is definitely meta, and Deckard's definitely meta. Any one of these heroes you can move up in rank in, and you can also use in the competitive scene. With all of that being said, the goal is that you're going to pick one of these heroes, and you're going to play like nothing but that hero for like 2 weeks. Not really 2 weeks. My goal is like 25 games. And the reason is you want to learn every little detail. You want to limit test. You want to improve. You want to just keep moving up in rank. And then once you're in a higher rank, it's a lot easier to learn another hero and spread out your roster when you're playing against someone. Because if you're playing against a Grandmaster, a Nubarok, he's going to teach you more than you trying to learn a Nubarok while you're around Plat and just playing a Nubarok a lot. You're going to learn more from that Diamond and Nubarok, because you're going to be like, whoa, I don't even think you could do that. Like, he'll be jumping over walls you didn't think were walls you should be jumping over. He'll be cocooning different people than you probably would be cocooning, and you get to learn from them. So we want to get you higher ranks so you can start learning and increasing your roster, but I want you to have a small roster while you're moving up in rank, because it's going to be easier, because there's fewer things that you need to focus on. You got to expand more of the macro side of the game, and you shouldn't be missing any of your abilities because you're playing nothing but that hero. So you know the timings of everything, you know everything about that hero, so it'll be very easy to move up in rank. So you're going to have 25 games as Joanna, then you're going to have 25 games as Garrosh, and then you're going to have 25 games as Dahaka, and then 25 games as Rainer, and then 25 games as Deckard in a row. and then you'll start actually taking the roles that you want to go. And if your team ends up does like pushing you more towards the tank role, that's where you're going to be like, okay, this is where I'm going to start expanding in the tank role. And whenever you play anything but tanks, it's going to be one of these three heroes. Does that make sense? Cool. Let's get into some replays. So let me take a peek at your account, and you may need to log back in for some of these replays, but just to grab them. But let me just take a quick peek. So as far as let's see, there's 2 Joe games and a Deckard game. Depending on the length of these, we'll grab these. But let me see if there's any others that. Let's see what the team comps are. Joe with a Karazim, the Brightwing. What was the enemy team? Oh, this one would be a good one. Okay, so probably Tomb, Deckard. This one's fine. So these will definitely be 2. So the Tomb, the Hanamura, and then there's a Rainer game. Let's do. Do we want to do the Rainer game? Okay, so we won't worry about Rainer. Dahaka was the other one. It doesn't look like you have a Dahaka replay. There is a Garrosh game like way down there, but that's a brawl. We won't count that. Yeah, these are really far. Let's start off with these 2 and we'll go from there. So log in, grab the Joanna on Tomb, but just double check how long these games are. I can't see it in your match history, but you can see it in your watch area. So if you're in watch, it'll say like what the time is. It'll say like duration. So see what the duration of those games are. I prefer 18 minutes or longer, but anything's fine. Yeah, so then on that one, click on the shown folder and just drag it into Discord and press enter. And then same thing with the other one. Well, depending on how long the other one is. Yeah, same thing. We'll go with that one. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's just gonna be it's gonna be in Discord again. So yeah, double healer. Definitely don't go laws. Hold your ground's a good choice. It's always weird getting games like this. You guys do potentially have enough damage. Yeah, you guys should potentially still have enough, but it's going to require a bit of coordination because it all really relies on like can Karazim hit the target you're aimed at, and as well as can Hanzo hit that same target. Hopefully, Rag goes. Hey, I doubt he will. It doesn't really matter what ult he goes, but it'd be a lot easier to lead to a kill. Why'd you tell your team to back up here? Just curious. It's not like a okay. Should be fine. Oh, he already has force tax. So because they're taking a while to show up, you probably will want to just go bot for one wave, but we'll see. This is where I would type rag bot. Soul lane's always the furthest lane from the other two, so you should always make sure that he's in the furthest lane from the other two. And that's bot lane. The other reason it's a lot safer for you guys to double soak through this little area right here than it is to try to go through the middle area right here, because there's just so many bushes that people can hide in. So the faster you communicate that, the easier this game gets. This is just a little awkward. You kind of hesitated back and forth. I think ETC on this side of you kind of threw you off a little bit. There's nothing really big about this that I can explain. So I don't like ever going back. So you're going to notice something when I do these replays. I generally am going to try to point out things before they happen, unless there's like a major mistake that I just wasn't expecting that to happen. And my reason for that is like, if I don't see something, it's probably something that I wouldn't have seen in game. It's probably something that you wouldn't have seen in game. So I never like to, and this is something that always bothers me about other coaches, is like they'll pause after every like small mistake, even if like they didn't have the information ahead of time. And even if they did, it's still one of those things that you just wouldn't know. But what I'm going to recommend is when you go in, don't ever stay very long, especially if you're not near your team. You want everything to be a fluid motion. You want to go in, and it should look something like this. It should be like you're going in, W, Q, and then you leave. And that's how it should almost always be. And the reason why I'm going up is because you're going to be pulling all of the minions underneath you so that your Q hits all of them. And then you leave. And you can do the same thing down. It should just be a very simple like W, Q, and then back out again. And that's how every fight should be going and every little engage. Now, you did get silenced in there, but you should still follow that same fluid motion. So when you are ready to leave, you're already mostly gone. So right here, you kind of just hesitated back and forth. And I want you to get to the point where everything that you're doing with confidence. Even if something unexpected happens, you're still doing what you want to do with confidence. And it's okay to adapt mid-situation, but it's not okay to like hesitate mid-situation, which is another reason the more you play a hero, a lot of these things just won't even happen because you don't need to think about your abilities anymore. All of your abilities will be muscle memory. And that's where we want to get you at, is to where you don't think about what you need to do. You're just doing it. Everything that happens to you, you're prepared for it, or at least subconsciously prepared for it. You'll just do it without thinking about it. But yeah, it's... There's not much you can do there, honestly. Like, when you're pushing these waves out, generally, where she's just sitting there auto-attacking you, you want to use bushes a lot more, because that's the only way to get an auto-attacker to stop auto-attacking you. So you'll go in with an ability, and then you'll go into a bush. And then she can't step up, because then you walk up and use your abilities and lock her down. So now she's stuck over here, and she can't push forward, and she can't do anything about it. Well, the other benefit of doing this is that you control this zone now. So if someone starts running up this way, Lily sees it and she leaves. So as a tank, you should be going in, using abilities, getting out. And the same thing is going to be... You're just going to adjust the direction of it. The first time, it's going to be like this. You're going to use your abilities, and then you might just go down here. And the second time, you're going to go up, you're going to use your abilities, and then you're going to go down here. And you might even just go up. You might go up, use your abilities, use your Q, and you might go up here, mount up, and then come right back around again, and then go down here. Like, the whole thing is you want to be a little unpredictable about where you're going, but you also want to control zones. Being a tank is all about controlling the zones, and a lot of times it's a lot easier to keep your team alive without actually needing to peel for them. as long as you're just and another thing too is you're only queuing the back line whenever you go for wave clear. That's why I want you to go down slightly, so you pull them all above you and your Q hits all of them. Because you're going in with W, you do your E, you do your W, you walk right in, and then you just queue the back line, and you're only hitting 3 minions with your Q. We want you to hit every minion in there, so you kind of need to be more fluid by going down to pull them all above you, and then Q will hit everything. That gets really relevant around level 13. Level 13, you can wipe an entire wave without ever attacking, without ever auto-attacking. It's all just spells. The whole wave gets wiped. Yeah, this game, it's looking rough, but honestly, the fact that it still goes on for 19 minutes is pretty surprising. I would probably go for the camp. You guys, an early turn-in could be good and it could be bad. Because these scale based off of game time, a 3-minute spider phase will just die to like minions. I kid you not. Like it's so weak. So there hits a point where it's like, don't interrupt, let them turn, grab bruisers, hold until they turn in. And then Bruisers deals with mid, Rag deals with bot, you guys deal with top, and there goes 50 of their gems, and you guys are on an even playing field again. And it's not that hard to like tell them to not interrupt, and anyone can start Bruisers, so you could even go down there and start Bruisers, and that's all that it takes to kind of ruin their day. And as a shot caller, and normally I wouldn't even bring this up, but as a shot caller, you should know when it's good to give them an objective. Like if you can prep for an objective and you give it to them and you guys play it out right, they just waste all of their gems. So there's actually a ton of good times to have them get a turn in because it's just wasted. So you'll definitely want to know those things as a shot caller. I know you said you were team captain. I don't know if you said that you were shot caller, but I'm just bringing that up. So if you are shot caller, awesome. If not, then I don't know. You can pass it along or whatever. And same thing right there. You used all of your abilities. Your teams use their ability. I mean, there's like nothing really left that you guys need to do here. Once your slows are done, everything like that, you just kind of curl back away. Now the thing about this is firing off an ability, so it's okay to kind of step forward. I might even go up here to kind of like annoy them for a second, but yeah, it's not too much you can do. The other thing too is always take a peek to see what build everyone's going. Who do you need to blind? She's going auto attack, so well she's going a weird auto attack build. So it's like you definitely want to be blinding Vala. Don't need to worry about him. Don't need to worry about her. I mean, maybe we'll check level 7. And then you can also use your blind to reveal Valera. If you reveal Valera, she loses all of her stealth abilities. So that's definitely something that you want to do as well. It's another reason where Blessed Hammer is really good against Valera because it swings out so far that there's a lot of times you'll accidentally reveal her. And then she just loses like half her kit. She becomes half a hero. I mean, it just takes you forever to kill that, but what else would you have done? Like, I'm not really upset about that. I do want you to use every second of your time efficiently, but sometimes, like, there's just nothing to do. So, like, in a situation like that, I didn't really want it to kill a fountain, but it was also a melee minion. And if you've ever clicked on a melee minion, oh, you can't actually do this, but I can. They still do a decent chunk of damage to structures, so it's like 61 damage to structures when they only do 5 damage to minions. So it's like, yeah, you'd still probably want to take out the melee minions if you can. It's annoying, but like, you might as well do it. So when you're wiping a wave, this is kind of how you should do it. Ready? So when you're ready to wipe a wave, you make sure that you initially fire your E where it's going to hit the entire wave, which is what you're doing. You kind of have to step away from it so you can get the entire wave in. The next thing that you're going to do is you're going to step in a position where your W is going to pull them all towards you in the same direction. So you want to stand about here so that this guy gets pulled in here, this guy gets pulled here, this guy gets pulled here, in here, down to probably about here, here, and here. Then you might need to step up just like an inch, or maybe step back just an inch. Like in this case, I would just move slightly over, and then you're going to do a Q, which is going to hit like everything like that. And that is how you hit the entire minion wave with all of your abilities. And that way, from there, at level 7, it's going to take 6 auto attacks on the backliners. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The entire wave cleared should take slightly over 6 seconds. Because a wave shows up every 30 seconds and travel time between top and mid is about 5 seconds, you can double soak with time to spare on Joanna as early as level 4. Level 13, you don't need these 6 auto attacks. It's actually, by level 10, it's only 1 auto attack per each of the backliners. And at level 13, no auto attacks for each of the backliners. The wave just wipes. And I think melee minions are left with a tiny bit of health, but your minions kill them so fast that you don't even need to pay attention. You just mount up. The more efficient you can do that, the more time that your team has to go do other stuff. And so you want to get really good at that. So right here, you really run the long way. You could just use a Q to slow Jaina really quick, and your team gets out fine. Whenever like ETC's sliding in, like if you can't actually kill it, you just usually want to like peel away anyone else, and then you're just gonna like trade and walk away. So like if you want to peel people off of your team, you stand here so your W pulls them. You stand here so your W is gonna pull Jaina that way away from your team. Then you'll slow her with a Q, and you'll pop your trait, and you'll just walk away. That way you can save your team without ever needing to get into the middle of the fight. And it's something that you'll want to get really good at, especially when your team's out of position a lot of times. You don't want to do it too often because you don't want to like just get killed, especially the later the game goes. But early game, it's a nice way to just kind of rip people away from your team. Your team gets away fine. You also want to like call retreat when you're doing it, because I'll do that. I'll pull in like the team, and then everyone runs in to go help out. I'm like, no, I did that to save you. That's why I call retreat, and then I do it, and then I just leave. So like right here, for example, instead of pulling her towards your team and then also doing nothing about these guys, you could instead go right here, pull her away from your team, pull these guys close, and just do a big 80% slow on all of them, pop your trait, and walk away. This is where I'd just be VPing a bunch because I have no mana, and I would just be out. So I would just back. Yeah. We'll fast forward through your back. You left while you still had a little bit of mana, which is good. A lot of people wait till their full mana bar is back, but it's like you still have, 3.5 mana per second, so you can leave. I mean, it's going to take you 15 seconds to get there anyway, so it's like that's a good chunk of mana. It's like 45 mana. So it's like it's better to just leave when you left. It's okay to just wipe this wave really quick. Like it's just right here. You guys already have vision down here. And if they were already hiding up here, they would have been clearing this. So they're all in the bottom half of the map. Just be willing to like make efficient use of your time. Wipe it. And then again, if you're gonna pop your trait, the thing about popping your trait is that's your only escape on Joanna. If you're not using it to escape, you're going to lose your escape. So just make sure that when you pop that trait, you are leaving or you are like winning the team fight or whatever you need right then. If not, you pretty much only ever use it to leave the team fight. So like if you're popping that so you can walk through like a route so that you can get like the biggest ult and everything that your team gets a kill in, it's like sure. But if not, your trait is your escape and your escape only, and it should only be used for that. So every time you pop your trait, you need to make a conscious decision of, am I immediately going in or am I immediately getting out? And you should just get out. Because it is that's the pretty much the only mistake. As a tank, your whole purpose is to watch for mistakes. And that's like the thing, like every tank has their own mistake that they're looking at. ETC, he slides in too early. You punish him because he slided in too early. You punish him. Same thing in Nubrak. He charges in too early. You punish him. Anytime that people charge in at bad times, it's like easy mistakes that you punish. Joanna's only mistake is when she pops her trait too early. That's the only thing that you can really punish against a Joanna. So if you see that pop too early and you're against Joanna, it's the same thing. If you're playing Garrosh and she pops her trait, you just wait for that trait to end and you just chuck her into your team and kill her. That was good. Blinded her before you got hit by the stun. Oh, don't go back in. Walk out. You don't have your trait for an escape, so if people are stunning you, you gotta get out. Yikes. But yeah, it was kind of the same thing. You got hit by the stun, you walked back in. This was after Karazim had already died. This is after Lily had already died. You can't go back in. You've got to, especially as a tank, you've got to only take the fights that are actually going to be valuable. So what those are, 9 times out of 10, if your team is attacking a target and you CC it, that target will die. If your team is not attacking a target, but they are close and you CC it, there's a 30% chance that they die. And if your team is nowhere near you and you CC that target, there's no world that they die. So there's no point even trying to do that. And so that's kind of how you should be approaching every fight on any tank is how close is my team? What are the odds I get a kill? And you shouldn't ever walk into a fight that you have no chance of getting a kill. And that's another reason why it's like you're going to be playing nothing but this hero. You're going to limit test and you need to learn from those limit tests. You need to go in. If it doesn't work, you need to ask yourself, like, why did this engage not work? And you look around and you go, okay, I had no team. And you'll need to, like, break that tunnel vision a little bit. We all have tunnel vision. It's just... Okay. Only ever use CC on targets your team is already attacking. There's essentially 4 times when you should ever use Blessed Shield. 1 is to secure a kill. Something that's low health, that you can just kill on your own. 2 is to prevent a death. Someone's charging in, you have someone on your team that's at 10 health, and if you ult, they stay alive. That's it. 3, you can ult any time that your team is actively attacking a target. You ult so that you give your team more time to attack that target. And 4 is for interrupts. Those are the only 4 times you should ever ult. Priority is on really if your team's attacking a target. The way you can get your team to attack a target is by doing a WQ. If you land a subdue and your team gets close enough, then you ult. If you don't land a subdue and your team's not close enough, what did you waste? Like 2 low cooldown abilities, 10 second, 8 second? But yeah, be careful about those ults because that's like the only thing that you have to like secure these kills. And again, you traded to get rid of the root, but if you would have just had a fluid motion, you would have never gotten hit by the root. And you would have had your trait for later in this fight. And same thing with your ults. You could have ulted to interrupt the sleep, or even to hit the Valera as she was coming in. Like having these ults, like if you waste an ult, that's a mistake that should get punished. In this case, it did get punished. And it's the same thing. You're looking for those mistakes on tanks. You can play very safe. I play tanks very safe. I only look for mistakes. That's a mistake. So this right here could be one of those times where you like pop your ult, your team's the thing is they're not really attacking him, so you wouldn't be able to lead to a kill here. But these are the times he slid in. If you had a normal team comp here, you just ult him, then you pull him closer to your team, you slow him. He has no escape. He just dies. Like ult right there. That's what I was saying for secure kill. If someone's ever low enough to where you could kill him if you just had enough time to get 2 auto attacks, that's where you can throw your ult. You're kind of overstaying here now. Your team's used a lot of their ults. It's going to be really limited, but that's a mistake on her part. She should die here now. She's already used her escape by going in. She's already used her silence. If you had an ult, she dies. If not, she'd probably live here, most likely. And that's another thing about chasing. I always have a 5-second rule for chasing. If you can get a kill in the next 5 seconds, you can continue to chase. If you can't, if you look at it and go, oh, we're going against someone who has an escape in the next 5 seconds, you don't chase at all. Because then you don't even just save 5 seconds, you save every second in between that first and 5 seconds. It's not a big deal, but it does add up. These ults, they do nothing. It didn't save anyone. It didn't secure a kill. It didn't stun anyone that your team's already attacking. Didn't interrupt anything. So make sure that everything that you're doing has a very specific purpose. All right, what build is everyone? W, E build, that's fine. W build's fine. That's probably still fine. And you've got this build. It's a good kill. Did you not attend draft? Feels like it. Okay, when calling out a boss, personally, I think this is an okay boss call. Yeah, personally, I think this is an okay boss call. In coordinated, you can take boss calls like this that are like you got just 1 kill on the tank and you can go for it. In uncoordinated, the easier the call, the better. And if there's more than one thing to focus on, you recommend just trying to do. I recommend just trying to do like what everyone on your team's already trying to do. I don't like doing like a call that seems like we have to get everyone to do something that they're not ready to do, because then you're going to end up having a split team. In coordinated, I think, again, like, are you the shot caller? On your team, yeah. Okay. If you're the shot caller, this is actually a pretty good call. You kill the tank, which means that they're going to have a hard time contesting. If they try to contest, you guys can turn on them. You've got your ult in 11 seconds, which is about the amount of time it's going to take them to realize that you're doing this. This is a really good boss call in coordinated. In Storm League, you have to make like the easiest call, which is usually not the best call, but the easiest call. When you are doing a boss, don't use a lot of abilities, unless like it's very time intensive, because it's just inefficient. All of your abilities are AoE, so if you're using them on single targets, it's just a waste of mana. Yeah, you guys can go in. This is a good ult. Yeah, that's a good one. So again, targets your team's already attacking. You ult, gives them more time to attack them. So what he just did was the combo that I mentioned. The problem and the mistake that he made was he stayed on the sleep mode too long. if you're going to throw out the E into the R, you need to turn off your sleep immediately because everyone's going to wake up right as they get rooted. So he could have walked away from this with that combo, but he should die here now. Yeah, he's fine, which is okay. You've got the turn in. On this map, the objective is decay. So you want to make sure that you've wiped all the waves so that when you turn in, they spawn as close to the enemy structures as possible. Your job, because you don't need to turn in yours, is wipe this wave, and then come back to mid and wipe one more wave. That would be your job right now, and you have to do it as efficient as possible and as fast as possible. Because remember, level 13, level 14, you can wipe an entire wave in one go. Look how long it's taken these guys to do this. Like, look at this. Look at this. You would have been done with this wave. Look at this. It's like, now look at where this spawns. And now watch this health. It's just decaying. Nothing's attacking it. It's just decaying. It's going to be half health before it even gets over here. You don't want that. It's a good W. Nice. Q, 80% slow. You just walk away. Walk away. Your trait, little late, as far as a little early. You got to make sure that it's your escape. You use your trait so you can get in the middle of your team to do stuff. You've got to use your trait to get out. So instead, you walk up, you do the stuff that you want to do, and then you trait and you just immediately beeline. Your trait, you should almost always trait and just, it's a straight line out. You guys have another turn in. You could go for it if you want. What build did you go? Subdue, roar. Yeah. Yeah, this is good. Just pick up fanaticism, which I'm guessing you don't go fanaticism, but that's okay. Again, the time it's taking you to clear these waves is just so inefficient. You're taking so much damage. When you get to like camps, you kind of have to. Like, you have to just sit there and auto attack it a lot because you don't have camp clear, you just have wave clear. But still, you don't want to be clearing it like this far into their team. Look how far your enemy team is and your team is versus their team. You're like just free to take a bunch of damage from these two targets. So you'll probably just have to pop trait, walk away, but now you're not going to have trait for 25 seconds or 20 seconds. I didn't see where you used your ult, but that's fine. I'm not too worried about it. It's just rough. It's just like you forced your team into a fight that was 16 to 15, and you also forced Hanzo to use his arrow to save you. You forced Karazim to jump in to save you. You forced Lily to pop her ult to save you, all just because you were in the wrong position. So you just need to be a little cautious about that, and especially as a tank, there's a lot of times where you bait your team, even as simple as what I said, when you're peeling for your team. That's actually funny. If you're ever peeling for your team and that requires you to go in, you need to make sure that you tell your team to back out. Like, there's tanks have that problem where like they go in to save their team and then their team goes back in because they think it's a team fight. You can just use your E to interrupt. Yeah. That's if, again, like, you guys can make a decision here if you want, where you could let them just turn in. Because you do have Ragnaros. So it's like, as long as you have Rag and you get camps at the right time, you guys can deal with their turn-ins. It's like, if the way they're going to win this game is by killing Rag and then turning in, or like turning in and killing Rag as he's trying to use the trait, like, that's where they're going to like really ruin you guys. Yeah, Holy Renewal. Holy Renewal is fine, but you don't need any extra healing, and that's all it does. And it's also really light healing if you actually look at it. 214 health. On average, you'll probably be hitting 2.5 people. So it's about 500 health, give or take. That's 10% of your life every time you use your longest cooldown ability. I don't think it's really that worth it. Unless you're taking momentum where you're lowering the cooldown of it, then it's just consistent healing at that point. But so again, you've used your trait very early. If I was ETC, I would just mosh you, because right as your shield breaks, the only interrupt that the enemy team has to mosh is literally Hanzo arrow. And if I burn Hanzo arrow, and even if I get the mosh off for a decent amount of time, there's a good chance you still die and we burn Hanzo arrow. The W is a little defensive, but I'm wondering if there's a world you... Let's see, you stunned her. Actually, did you hit the minion? No, that's your minion. So you stunned her, it's bouncing over, it'll hit Jaina, and then it'll hit Vala. But you've already used your W. Like, if you would have saved your W, instead of using it defensively, and like over here, you would have ulted, and then stunned these, and then you could have pulled both of these in and did an 80% slow. But the real issue with this is someone going to die on the enemy team? Is someone going to die on your team? Probably not. So, were you interrupting anything? No. So again, you gotta follow those rules a little bit when you're... The easiest way is... Oh, I'm surprised the lava wave didn't get the kill. And again, you popped your trait, you gotta get out. Beeline. If you pop in your trait. Like, these fights are actually surprisingly close. Like, if the enemies are getting very low, you guys are like, just the small mistakes you're making could actually lead to you getting these kills every time. And if you guys would just be getting these kills every time, then it's a 5v3 at that point. Even with low damage, you'll eventually kill them. And your Kharazim's finally hit its power spike, right? He's going this Q build, so you can just dive in and just punch people forever. So it's like he does have a little bit of damage now. It's not a good build, but it's like you guys certainly did have a chance, but it is definitely getting much harder. But either way, we're going to be done with this replay because they should be able to close out the game here. They don't, but they should be able to. Let's take a peek at this other game. This is the Hanamuro Deckard. Honestly, what it's coming down to is you're using abilities at wrong times most of the time. Like, it's not really a passive or aggressive thing. I think as far as your understanding of fights, of when to take a fight, seems to be mostly fine. It's just the abilities are being used at times that just don't do anything. Your ults don't do anything. I mean, there was one ult in there that I was like, that's a good ult. And you fired off probably 7 or 8 ults, and one of them I was like, that's a good ult. Every other ult, like, there was just no need for it. And then there were times in between those ults that there were better times to use ults. So, like, if you were a little bit more calculated on your ults, then the movement, when you get into these fights, go in, use abilities, pop your trait, get out. If you can get more in that, it's going to be a lot safer for your team. Anchoring a little bit more, where you're using bushes more. You go in, you use a couple abilities, you go to a bush, you mount up. You want to mount up in between every engage. And it's easiest to do that in the bush. And the bush also means you don't just take unnecessary damage against the auto attackers. But as far as, like, being too aggressive or too passive, I don't think you were either of those, really. I mean, you weren't too passive and you weren't, like, overly aggressive. You were in a pretty good spot as far as aggression goes. It's just like when to use abilities. Like, I want you to be a little bit more patient about abilities. Feel free to use abilities still on, like, wave clear, feel free to use abilities to like feel out a fight, and you'll definitely want to limit test a little bit, but you need to learn from those limit tests. Every time that you ult and it doesn't lead to something, you should go like, what could I have done like, is that like, should I have not used that ult, or did it accomplish something? Because pretty much every time you use an ult on Joanna should lead to a kill or should prevent a death in some way or another. I mean, the exception is interrupts. The reason that I give that third rule, or that fourth rule anyways, of use your CC on targets that are already being attacked, is because that's the most effective time to use CC. It's not really that I'm saying like, oh, that's just a good thing to do, or that, like, that's all it's literally just a good thing to do. It's just something that you want to be doing. But as far as that, like, the big things that, if there's like three things that you get out of this, is like CC targets that are already being attacked, or at least while you're near your team, pull people in, slow them, and then see if your team goes in. Be more in and out, in when you have abilities, out when you don't. Use your trait to get out. Those are like the big three that I would say you need to work on. The rest is kind of smaller stuff. Like, don't bait your team into fights that are bad. Start trying to discover what a good fight and a bad fight is. If you guys have used a lot of your ults, whatever fight you're about to do is probably a bad fight. If they've used a lot of ults, that's probably going to be a good fight. And look for other things in the fight that could be good or bad. Did you guys get a turn in? Are you waiting for it to show up? Are you fighting in the middle of a camp? Like, what are the other things that are advantageous for you? And you go from there. But the few things, work on those first. That was a rough game. Like, you guys did not have a lot of damage. But, well, could you have won that game if you changed around enough things? Maybe. It still would have been uphill for sure. Did you guys scale really well in level 20s? Not really. So even though you did have Ragnaros, I don't think that would have really helped that much. I don't know if you guys would have ever won that game. Like, the draft was just rough. You definitely have a lot that you can learn through that game, but I just, like, looking at it myself, I don't think you guys ever won that game. Yeah, he's a Smurf. Your position for your keys is really good. I generally tell people you want to put them in a position where it's easy for people to get them, but they don't accidentally pick them up. And that's exactly what you're doing. They're placed in positions that are easy. I like to put them in the same spots, just the sides of fights. That way, anyone can step down or step up and pick them up. I don't usually throw potions out in the middle too often, unless like everyone needs healing. And then potions this far forward are usually just wasted, but that's fine. But overall, your potion placement's really good. Just make sure that you're always next to at least one person, so you have your fortitude going, which you do. So again, still very good. You don't really need to attack. Your auto attacks do like 60 damage. It's not really worth ever putting yourself in a position where you might get hit by something just to get like a couple auto attacks off. I mean, unless like you're doing your best to like block an ability or two, but always throw where people are going. But this is one of those mechanic things that the more you play hero, you won't ever miss this. So these are the times where if you were just playing Deckard Cain all day long, this guy lives when he is going to die here. But he would live if you just played Deckard Cain a little bit more. Don't CC enemies that your team's not attacking. It's just a waste of mana. You don't need to heal people that are already going to back. I mean, he has enough mana, but I guess it's fine. I'm not going to like harp on that. So that's a pretty good CC. You CC someone in the middle of turrets, CC someone that your team's already attacking, like definitely a solid one. But yeah, otherwise just get everyone topped off, throw all your don't use your abilities for wave clear. Don't do that. It does it, especially if your team's nearby. If your team's not nearby, this is going to do 10% of a wave, which means you're going to have to do this 10 times. That's going to take forever. And if your team is nearby, they can clear it. It's just not efficient at all. If you want any wave clear at Deckard, you take Ancient Blessings and you just pop it and then just auto attack a wave 8 times. But that's like super inefficient as well. You're using essentially an ultimate ability just to clear a wave. Something that you can do if you want, once everyone's kind of topped off here and you've got a couple extra potions down here, you can always head up here and just drop a couple potions here or a couple potions here. And then you guys can always do this. And it's just nice because if you ever have a situation where like they assist their solo laner, which is what happened, your solo laner is like, oh, okay, I've got an extra potion or two I can grab. And again, it's just you're throwing a lot of abilities out that aren't doing anything. It's just going to be rough on your mana, and also you won't have this for when he actually lands a slide. Because if he lands a slide here, you will be able to land your root most likely. Especially if you can like kind of throw it, like if you see him going for a slide and you throw it a little ahead of time, because his slide stuns for a second and a half. I mean, second 1.25. Yours takes 2.25, but it's like that only gives them 1 second now to move out of the way. And if you slow them as well, then that gives them 1 second while they're slowed to move out of the way. So if you can get it whenever he slides, you'll almost always land the root. And then again, if your ETC is going to slide and then they root, that's a lot of time that they're stuck still that for your team to kill. So it's pretty good. Ruby with like ETC is tricky. I'm not a huge fan of it just because, like I said, his only mobility is his slide, and he's probably not going to be using that to pick up a bunch of rubies. So right there, for example, like, oh, he knocked back after the slide. Well, he's not supposed to do that. If you're ever playing ETC, don't do that. Even if you take the talent that crits, you still don't do that. Unless, like, you can literally kill them by yourself. So that's where I might say something like, ETC, all root after your slide if you don't boop. So you're not blaming him, you're giving him, and you're not even giving him advice. You're just saying, hey, like, you need to word it in a way that's like, don't boop after your slide. Like, it's more like a, hey, let's combo, but I'm going to need you to do this if we're going to combo. Like, that's how you're planning it, to where it's like, you make it sound like it's not a mistake, but more of like a, hey, we're going to combo. And that's how you play it out. Because if not, people get so defensive about stuff. They're like, what do you know? You're a healer. It's like, little does he know you're actually a tank main. But people are the worst. You'll probably want to just back here. Yeah. Yep. And I just throw them on the sides again. Sides of where you think the fight's going to be. Same thing, just keep throwing your healing potions out. Healing potion costs like almost no mana, so you want to just be throwing these out almost at every time. Even if like you push this a little further and these are all wasted, that's fine. It's the times that these are not wasted that make the whole thing worth it. And as long as you're not mashing like your W and your E off cooldown, you'll never run out of mana just throwing healing pots out. So you want to always have, before every fight, you want 4 healing potions out in the general area. And this looks like it's about to turn into a fight, so you always want those 4 healing potions out. Because Deckard's healing in team fights is actually pretty bad. So these are like the times where Emerald's really good. If everyone's attacking a target and you don't need to use Sapphire, you throw an Emerald, and that healing that just healed her 50% of her health would actually only heal her, 12% of her health? It's not a big deal, but she'd be dead right now. Because she's at 50% of her health. Oh no, she'll be at 10% of her health, but now she would be dead. But you get the point. How something as simple as taking Emerald. Now you're not level 7 yet, so it wouldn't have changed this particular game, but just kind of shows you the difference that you can make. Oh, why are you going in there? Something to see is when you got out of your stun, your healing potion was up, and you did a Ruby instead of just doing an Alt Q. If you do Alt Q, you don't actually throw the potion, you just instantly use it on yourself. So that's one of the reasons why Deckard's really hard to kill, is because his self-healing, if you're just healing yourself with Qs, and you have the extra 10 armor, is like, he's really hard to kill. The problem is that in team fights, he's rough because you're not always landing your Qs, so that extra healing... Oh, this is easier. Yeah. It is interesting, though. Does this land? You don't have Sapphire, so he could just walk and probably get out. Or, if he wants to be sneaky, he could use his portal back through, but it should time out before that. So his best case is just to walk this way, and he should be out. Yeah, he gets out anyways. Sapphire, that probably would have landed, but it wouldn't have mattered because no one was near it. I still would have thrown it. Like, even if that would have been a mistake that I would have made, is what I'm saying. Is because it's just like, I would have rooted him, but even if whether or not I Sapphire to root him, it would have been a waste of a Sapphire. Yeah, just throw this off cooldown. Doesn't matter if it's going to be a fight. You're at full mana. Like, if it happens to be a fight area, you want to have those 4 potions out near you. The reason that I say 4 is that 5th one can be used just to spot heal people, and then the 4 is still sitting around. Oh, that should be a root. Boom. And a scroll of Stone Curse. It would have been a crit. Just kidding. But this is a good fight. That's fine. You guys are over chasing. If you don't have the ability to kill in 5 seconds, don't chase. She has E, she's got her W. Now, she doesn't have her trait left anymore, but still. She moves so fast with that level 7 talent. Oh. How is she moving faster? I don't know. It's weird. Maybe Bribing was nearby and just threw an E out. It's weird. Yeah, don't do that. It's not worth it. I mean, you got your mana back, but what if he slid and you needed your... It's just like, there's just like... I mean, yeah. It's like... The other thing, too, is like, a lot of times, if you end up doing too much damage, the thing that dies first in minion waves is always the middle minion, and you don't want to give a globe to the enemy. Because a globe is like so much healing and so much mana, and also globe quests. Like, ETC's probably doing... Or no, ETC's not doing prog rock, he went block party this game, but... So this would be a situation where if you just wanted to, look how close your team is to, like, Orphea. You could actually just do like an ult combo just to root her, and it could be pretty beneficial. And if you just hold your ult out, you might even accidentally get like Medivh, because you see where Medivh is. If he drops down to give her a shield to block for this, he gets slept. And then because he gets slept, he takes the majority of his health. So there's a lot of stuff. If you want to force a fight before 10, that ER combo is like an easy way to do it. You need to make sure that you're at like the easiest way to make sure that your R always works is you go at a flank. Its size, if you're going at a flank, is so much bigger than if you're going just directly forward. But the other thing too is it's a mistake, but it's a mistake that if you just play a lot of Deckard, won't ever happen. There's another reason why I'm saying, like, if you just play one hero a lot, that won't actually happen. That's not really a decision-making issue on your part. That's a mechanics issue. And, like, mechanics issues just get fixed over time by playing the hero. Decision-making ones get difficult, because then I have to, like, give general rules to fix them, and there's not always a general rule. Like, sometimes things just get too nuanced. You have to put a lot of brain power into deciding what's going to be the best situation or the best thing to do. She should trade right before she gets rooted. Yeah, you guys can walk away. They just got all their ults. And the only person you guys killed can use Hunt. Yeah, this is why I don't really like Ruby. Just like, if you're winning the game, Ruby's awesome. If you're losing, like, if you're winning a fight, it's awesome. If you're winning the game, it's awesome. If you're losing the game or you're losing a fight, they just never get use. I mean, you're keeping people up, but imagine if he had an extra 180 health there. Would that have kept him alive long enough for you to throw another Q out? Maybe. This is, again, another time that you could combo if you want to, but you don't have any damage. So even if you do, like, you could do an ER, lock both of these guys in place. She doesn't have any mana, so she'll likely die, especially since she's using her escape right now. The problem is, I mean, she only has burst, and she doesn't have enough burst to kill either of them, so there's no point. Like, I thought about it too, but there's just no point. But if you don't play a lot of Li Ming, that's okay. That's limit testing. You see if you can do something like that, you do it. If it doesn't work, you don't do it again. Or you try it out with a different set of heroes. If that was Greymane, you guys killed Brightwing. But, or if it was Orphea or something, like, a little bit more bursty. Well, that happens, and it's fine. Like, that's how you learn. If you do play a lot of Li Ming, then you'd probably know how much damage she can do. This is wild. What is even happening here? Oh, they ended up getting... Yeah, I mean, Medivh set up the initial one, and then it was the Mei wall, and then it was just everything. It was wild. So fighting on camps is going to be probably something that you guys can't do. You always have to, and the other thing too is you're going to have to engage on your terms. With Medivh, it's always a tricky one, because you need to engage, but you also need to engage on, like, multiple people, because then he'll put a W on one person, the other one will die. But it's tricky. Medivh definitely has a different playstyle. You should just back. You're just wasting time. You guys can't contest this. I mean, maybe you see 2 top. I guess you could contest this. But yeah, so I just back. It's not worth wasting any time. Like, if you're not planning on fighting, you need that mana. Okay, Illidan. Just, yeah, I mean, it was just funny. He hunted Sonya and dropped down the turret, and then just suicided. I think he thought that he would have enough damage with the turret, but yeah, they're definitely on another thing where it's like, if you were shot calling, this is definitely a good call. You killed one and one was top, which means that if all five of you go in, it's a 5v3. You guys just quickly wipe them and then steal the camp. So you definitely were making the right call. But again, it's the easier call is usually what's actually what people are gonna follow in this in Storm League. So these are the times where you can go for a Sentinel camp here, or you can just like go and do siege damage. Either one's fine. The problem is if you fight over Sentinel camp, you might have to deal with the same thing that you just dealt with. So that's where like sometimes it's better to just get siege damage, especially the later the game goes. Camps aren't really worth as much because they get cleared easier. So sometimes it's better to just like, oh, two are dead. Let's just 5v like walls and stuff. Like destroy this, destroy this, destroy this, and then just leave. And like you'll be summoning catapults in this lane. That'll deal with all of this, and you could go worry about something else somewhere else. And then next time, I mean, your Sentinel camp's up soon. You could literally just go this sidewall, or you could literally skip through all of this, go straight over here, destroy this, come back around, kill this, go do this while they're going for their Sentinel camp, and then they have to defend against this one, or else it's going to be hitting their base, and you just walk right up here and destroy this. Like, there's a lot of things you can do, and those aren't as bold because your team's not doing anything right now. So the difficult calls are the ones where people are like, they can't decide between two or three things. The easy calls are the ones where like your whole team's just standing around next to a keep. You can just kill the keep. But this is just tough because if Medivh's already done this once, so the way that you get around this is if you ever see a Medivh that's about to do this, you want your team to always be in a like a V at the point, right? So like that way, if he ults in this direction, he doesn't hit whoever's over here, and then you just step back on. You can test until it's over. But if you're all in a line, he just ults you guys. So generally, you only need one person on the point. So you'll have like, you leave ETC on the point and you step this way. You step in a different line than where your team is. Because you're also Deckard, like you don't need to be melee range. I mean, like you do, but you only do like, I don't know, 60 DPS or something. I don't know why this guy's LOLing. He could have moved to the right as well, but whatever. Like, that's the thing. So I do these 6-point replays a lot, where I'll take a team and I'll do 6 different replays, where we take a single game and I'll show each player how they could have turned the game into a win, because I always tell them to send over a close game, and I show each player how they could have turned this into a win. It's always funny to see like when one of the players on the team is like, see, you're the reason that we lost, and then like they later in their replay they're like, oh okay, I guess I could have made this a win too. But this is just one of those moments where like any one of you guys could have gotten that point from Medivh. A thing about peeling for yourself, you just throw down a triangle in the direction that you're going, and then people walk away from it. Like, Deckard's really, really hard to kill on your own. And again, that's just another thing of like, the more you play him, the more comfortable you're going to be about using his abilities both offensively and defensively. This was good. Yeah, that was really good. Rule of chasing, pretty much same thing. 5-second rule. Do you guys have the abilities to catch them soon? The other thing that you can do is you can mount up, because you're waiting for your abilities to spawn anyways. So you can mount up so you can get closer to land your abilities. But right as she has enough mana to use icing, she's gone. So I'd rather just like, I don't know, grab this, go destroy this. Like, figure out what you want to do. Yeah, it's just such a waste of time. Oh, so much wasted time. Like, this guy's just here. There's cams still available. Like, there's so much that you guys could be doing. So generally in a team fight, the best positioning, and this is pretty important for your team to know as well. The best positioning is always a crescent moon. I'm going to use red just because it's easier to see. Your tank should always be forward, and the rest of your team should be in a crescent moon around your team. That way, any ability that's aimed at you should never ever hit anyone else on your team, and any ability aimed at your team should never hit you. A lot of people think that the best team fight is kind of like this, where the tank's like this, and then your backline's right over here with a couple members like this. The problem is like if Gul'dan fires off an ability, his Q is going to hit everyone. His E is going to hit everyone. It's just you're going to all take. You're literally quadrupling the damage of Gul'dan by positioning that way. But if you're all in a crescent moon, the amount of targets that Gul'dan can hit is considerably lower. Because if he tries to go for like this, he can only ever hit 2, maybe 3 if you guys are like close in that crescent, because you'll want one person on this edge, one person this edge, and you'll usually want one here and one here. So if he aims it perfectly, he hits maybe 3 people, but I mean that's a really wide queue. I'm being pretty generous with that. So that's kind of the position that you want to be in. As a healer, you generally want to be not at the edge of the crescent. That's where you want like auto attackers. That's where you want bruisers. You kind of just want to be in the back, but you still want to be separate. So this is okay if we look at it from this perspective, where maybe this is the edge of the crescent and the crescent goes this way, but you would just want like the Rainer to be over here. But this would be okay. However, the other thing that you can do is just always be aware of that, especially when you're tanking as well. You never want to force a fight where your team's only position. Let's say you're forcing a fight where like your team is all stuck in here because you're standing here and you're trying to force a fight on everyone that's over here. It's like that's where it can get pretty rough to follow up. But yeah, you guys are doing all right. Illidan's gone, Sony's gone. Illidan's probably just pretty close, actually. You got to throw it on him, man. So right here, you need to be moving in this direction, right? So you're going to be heading this way. You're worried about these guys who are endlessly slowing you. But you're also probably worried about anyone diving you. So where are you going to be in the next 2.25 seconds? You're probably going to be right about here. So you should be throwing a triangle like this, right? That way, when you get to here, they might back off. Or you could even throw it on yourself right now. If you're only worried about people chasing you, you could throw it on yourself right now. And that way, the triangle is actually going to be right here. And if the triangle's right here and you're right here, you're out. You're safe. Throw one more Q at yourself and then start healing the Rainer after that. You can also throw a W back just to slow them. But you can use these delays to your advantage, like as a zoning tool. And against Illidan, always go Heraldric Staff. Every auto attack he does increases not only his damage, but it's also his survivability and it's also his mobility, because every auto attack he does heals him as well as lowers his cooldowns. So if you can stun him for even a short period of time, it's going to reduce all of his survivability, because normally if he's attacking all the time, his uptime on evasion is something like, I want to say it's like 40%. But if you stun him for even a little bit, the uptime on invasion drops significantly, because he's not attacking and invasion drops, which means that he won't be able to get it back as fast. So he'll have evasion dropped very early. So just keep stuff like that in mind with Heraldric Staff. And you also have been landing on 2 different people a lot. So it's another one that is there. Ban May. I mean, there's just too many things to ban these days. Like yeah, and like Orphea good players on Orphea are sitting at like 70% win rates. Good URLs are sitting at like 80% win rates. It's like you can't ban everything. And on certain maps, you have to ban Abathur and Lost Vikings just in case if there's one of those players out there. Garrosh and Joanna tend to get banned a lot. May gets banned a lot. It's like, and then Cassia, and a lot of people have random target bans. Like, I'll join a game, they're like, ban Alarak. This random guy on the enemy team plays Alarak. I'm like I'm in plat on my Smurf, so it's like I don't want to just ban Alarak because I'm not really worried about a plat Alarak. But at the same time, I don't want to reduce the morale of my team by banning something that by not banning what they want me to ban. So I just have to ban it. Yeah, I just think there's a lot of times that these abilities are just being wasted, which is okay, but I think you're just using them so much to get field study. And again, I haven't seen any heal that hasn't overhealed yet, outside of like maybe a couple where you guys died anyways. So the difference is like if I see someone survive and walk away with 200 health, like that's probably the difference that field study made. But outside of that, like I've seen a couple of routes that Sapphire would have landed, but to be honest, I haven't seen any routes that Sapphire would have landed that would have led to a kill. That's a little unfortunate. All of those are going to get interrupted. So Mosh gets interrupted. You guys are out all of your ults. So as a tank, if you were tanking, once this Mosh gets interrupted, these are the fights that you'd want to back out of. Once you've seen like everything on your team go off. Yes, everything on their team's gone off, but you might not know that. Because I can only see this because we're in replay mode, but normally you can't. I wouldn't know for sure. Because I also like always forget when this thing goes off, but yeah, do you see how like he had two choices. He could follow you and get rooted, or he could walk away. Like that you used an E and you walked into your own route and he just could not follow you. And now you just heal yourself. And you can do Alt Q so it just automatically heals you rather than needing to pick it up. But you don't really want to be walking back into your team. So it's better to either Alt Q or it's better to just throw the Q towards your escape. And that's the other thing too about this talent is you need 3 allied heroes, which means you need 4 people around you. If you have a tank and a melee bruiser, you will never have 4 people close enough because you're only ever going to have three people in the back line, and that means you and 2 others. So safety numbers will never work. So unless you have 4 backliners, you should almost never take that talent. The rest of this, I mean, you're down 3 levels, so it's kind of irrelevant. The big thing this game, I would adjust your build. Throw more potions when fights are about to start, even if you're not sure. Just throw more potions. Try to save your abilities more to follow up your tank. And outside of that, same rules apply about engaging. Is engage when your team's nearby. But it was really just mechanics for this game. Your decision making, 90% of that game was actually really good. For the most part, you knew the fights you wanted to go into. You knew where you wanted to be. It was just mechanics. A little bit more confidence on being able to like handle divers. Like there's a few healers in this game that like I just don't care about divers at all. If someone dives on me and I'm playing like Anduin, it's pretty annoying, but I can usually just root and walk away. If I'm playing Alex, it depends if I'm in dragon form or not. I might just ult to get away. If I'm playing Ana, I'm just screwed. If I'm playing like Lucio, I don't even worry about divers at all. If I'm playing Stukov, I just push them away. Like there's a lot of them that can handle divers pretty well. And to me, Deckard is one of them that can handle it really well. You just smack them, that stuns them, you heal yourself, you walk away, you drop a triangle on yourself, they can't follow you. And at that point, like you go back to healing your team, and then if they still are like sitting back doing nothing for that long in a fight, like you just go back to smacking him again after the root's over. Stuns for another 0.75. Like, it's just one of those things that you kind of just deal with. But otherwise, sure. No, you still want standard comms. You're gonna go in. You're gonna go in draft, and you're gonna hover the hero that you want before ban phase is even up, because these get banned. The rest of these not so much, but these get banned. So you hover it before ban phase, and you'll get it more times than you would think. Most of the people that I coach, um, when I tell them to do this, I'll look at their match history and like it's still pretty close to being that almost every time. Like, um, let me see if I have the last guy. No, I don't think he's on this. Let's see. So, do you see how it's like these are different games? But do you see Joanna doesn't get Joanna for 2 games, but then do you see how the majority of the time he gets what he wants? Like, and Murden's his backup. Your Garrosh is his Murden, so it's the next one. But do you see how it's literally the same thing all the way through? Now, yeah. So that's kind of the idea that you want to be going for, is you want to be focusing on getting that hero as often as possible. Now, you got a limit test. I've coached him recently, so naturally he's going to have a lot of losses because you need to test out your limits. So that's okay. It's perfectly fine to lose. I tell people you're probably going to lose more than you win for the first week and a half. Then after that, your win rate's going to skyrocket. Particularly with this guy, he had 4 wins and 27 losses at the start of the season. So it's like it was 4 wins and 24 losses, and so he's catching up, but his win rate's still very low this season. So that's the big thing. Is like when I scrolled down earlier, I mean it was rough. It was real rough. But that's the thing, is you've got to just do it, and you'll get it more times than you would think you'd be able to get it. And a lot of people do this. Like, there's a lot of people that get the hero that they want to play most of the time. This guy's actually playing a lot more quick match than he normally does. But yeah, if you just hover, you'll get it. You just need to hover. You just need to show that that's what you want to play, and most people will try to let you get that thing. And especially if it's tank. So I would say ranked or unranked is what you want to focus on. Preferably ranked. You will probably lose ranked the first 2 weeks, because I want you to be making more mistakes. I want you to learn from those mistakes, but the goal is learn from them. You'll make more mistakes because you're going to be trying new things and you're going to be trying out new stuff, but then the goal is to just increase the win rate, even just slightly. I mean, even with Matlock, like the thing with him is like, I want to get I just want to increase his win rate just even a little bit. Like, his Joanna was at like a 35%, and then just like in the last, let's see, since I worked with him, he's at 2 wins here, 3 losses, a win, a loss, and a win. So he's at 50%. So he's improved, but he needs to improve more. And he's only been coached for 2 days, so he naturally is still going to need to put more of that stuff in. And that's the same thing. You're going to have to just keep at it. And that's why I say like 25 games is what you need to be. We're looking for those statistics. We're looking to get those numbers. The other thing is I would recommend you play alone more than playing with your team when you're practicing this stuff, because with your team, there's a lot of losses that come from just team mistakes, things that your team tries out, or let's try this, or let's do that, and you can really struggle. Like Matlock's playing with, or earlier today, he was playing with their team, and actually this was part of the tournament earlier. They won one, lost one. That's weird. They must have hid the match history in one of their games. But that's the thing, is if you play with your team, you don't know if they're going to do something weird, like run the butcher. You know, you don't know what they're going to do. And so you need to be able to move up on your own. And the other cool part about moving up on your own is if you can do that, the amount of like confidence you bring to a team is even better. One of the teams that I was coaching for a long time, it was like a bronze and silver team down in Division E. And their whole thing was like none of them were confident enough to even know like if this was a good comp or if they could win with this, and they were pretty much losing all of their games. I individually helped each one of them, and I told them all to play alone. They all moved up like 2 full tiers to where they were all gold and platinum. And then when they went back to their groups, they were much more confident in their team comps, and they won like 11 in a row and went from being without even a single win to being undefeated after that. And it's like sometimes just that little bit of confidence goes a long way. So that's what I recommend. Play alone more often. Matlock, I wish you'd play more alone, because the more other people you bring in, it's harder to tell if you're improving or if it's just like, oh, your team's just getting more serious or getting more tilted or whatever. But a fresh game every time, like you're the only difference. And then it's just a game of statistics at that point. Just winning 65% of your games is all you really need to do. Because if not, and it will take time. Like you're not going to have like Smurf win rates after this. Like even after like the 2 weeks, most people move up at about 60% win rates after the coaching, maybe 65. So don't get tilted. If you do start getting tilted off of a couple losses, just take a break, come back, stick with the same hero, and just keep improving. If a hero's not working for you, you can switch. You can pick a different one. I know there was one guy I coached for a while. The hero we chose, I think, was Stukov. And one guy I coached, Stukov just worked for me, 70% win rate. This other guy, he was at like a 30% win rate on Stukov. It was his highest level hero. And I said, you know what? It might just be like the habits that are just sticking with you a little too long. I'm like, just pick something new to try out. So I taught him Rhaegar. And he played nothing but Rhaegar, and he had 70% win rate all the way up, and just he literally moved up like 3 tiers just playing Rhaegar because he just had never played Rhaegar before. So learning a new hero without any bad habits, only learning the good things to do, is a lot easier. And that's where the difficulty of you being already like level 1400 is. You've got to be willing to break your habits, and you're probably going to lose a lot when you do that. You've got to kind of break it down to relearn it. Yep, and I mean I have the same issue too. Like I do get a little iffy on my main account, but it's just because like people really like tilt me on my main account because I'll be playing and then everyone's like I'll decay down to diamond and then literally every single game is, oh, you're in diamond. It's like, well, every season I get back up to masters, but it's so annoying to have to see that and read that every single game. And it's like, so I just play on my Smurf most of the time now. And that also feels pretty bad too, because it's like I checked and it's like you were Diamond 5 and Diamond 4, and it's like it's just one of those things. Now, if I was to look at just the last couple seasons, like as far as win rates, a lot of things like if you just want to move up in rank, you could just look at like your previous seasons and see, is there anything that you were just winning on? ETC 71, not too many games, 75 on Mal'Ganis, again, not too many games. This right here, I mean, 4 more wins and losses isn't too bad. 2 more here. Nothing really too crazy. Last season, was there anything? Stukov, like 6 more wins and losses. I mean, like, if you can sit on one of these, like, 60% win rate, 68% win rate, if you can sit on something like this, it doesn't matter what hero it is, you can just move up in rank. Even if it's a hero that you don't normally play. Where you're going to get screwed is, like, these, like, 16s and 31s and stuff. Like, that's where you're going to get screwed. So that's why sometimes, like, you just need to stop playing that hero. Like, when I was going for GM the first season, Deckard, I was playing competitive, and in competitive, my team, when I played Deckard, we won like every single game. Then in normal games in Hero League, I played Deckard and I had like a 45% win rate. And I was like, I'm good at Deckard. I'm just not winning in Hero League. So I just removed him from my Hero League roster. Even though I was still good with him, I just removed him from my Hero League roster. I switched to Alex Straza, 70% win rate, hit Grandmasters in like the next week. And it was like, that's kind of what you need to do sometimes is sometimes you do just have like that mental block or something that works with a team but just doesn't work with other people. I've seen some competitive players that have that problem, like Tiger JK. He's like an amazing competitive player, but when he gets on like his Smurfs, he like really struggles in like Plat because he just no one follows up anything. Everything's just rough. Like, but when he's in competitive, he does really well. He was in one of the best teams. But then like you'll look at someone like Leon or Fan, and it's like Smurf after Smurf, they've got 80-90% win rates all the way up. So it's definitely a different play style in each of these ranks, and you may need to just break through that a little bit. You might be more of a competitive player, and when you get to Plat, when everything's a little bit more chaotic, it just feels awful. And I feel that. I mean, Plat's a different beast for sure. Right on. Well, yeah, keep me updated if you have any like little questions here and there. I'm always here. I do always just do one little sales pitch. I mentioned it earlier. I do have a Patreon that's just you get one replay a month. It's $15 a month. You definitely don't have to do it, but it's just my one sales pitch, just so that like you can keep updated with everything that you've learned here. You can always just throw a replay to be like, okay, this is everything. What else am I missing? So it's not instead of just like one giant information dump that I'm giving you now, it's more like, okay, you can kind of trickle in a little bit more info. But again, you definitely don't need to do it. It's just my one sales pitch, my little shameless plug. With all of that being said, though, if you do have any questions, just let me know. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.